Jim Ryan's comments about the Call of Duty deal, the Xbox Activision deal, is sparking controversy and what I consider a mountain of misleading coverage. So I want to do a show about it. I typed this up this morning. I looked at the 22-page document, Sony's official response to what has been going on, as well as some of the alleged quotes of Jim Ryan. And then I looked at some of the coverage. I looked at Windows Central, Jez Corden writing an article that I'll be pulling from today to talk about how we are not getting good coverage of this situation. I would like to give a fully orbed piece of coverage that is not about being pro-Sony or anti-Xbox, but delivering facts. This is not about who is right or who is wrong. It's about accuracy. And that is what I'm going to aim for in this video. I am not on Sony's side or Microsoft's side. I am on the consumer side. And that is why I have been concerned and against the deal since the beginning. So I put all the good information right here at the beginning. This is going to be a long show open. I have about 18 pages of notes because unlike much of the coverage you've gotten up to now, I'm actually going to quote the document rather than just tell you what it says. I'm going to read portions of the document rather than falsely summarize it. I hope that all the information at the beginning of the video helps you watch it, enjoy it, and if you don't want to watch the entire live stream discussion, that's great. Hit subscribe and the like button. That way you don't miss out on my videos. So if you haven't seen the recent claims about Jim Ryan's comments on not wanting a new Call of Duty deal, but rather wanting to block the Xbox Activision deal, you have missed out on a dizzying display of bias-laden, misleading coverage. It has been stunning to see just how dishonest people can be in their coverage of this. These are supposed to be the people we can rely on for accuracy and gaming news reporting, and we're basically getting propaganda. First, let's look at the alleged claims. According to Lulu Chang, the EVP of Corporate Affairs and CCO of Activision Blizzard, so she's the CCO of Activision Blizzard as well as the EVP, she tweeted the following. Microsoft offered Sony, the dominant console leader for well over a decade with 80% market share, she makes sure to include that, a 10-year agreement on far better terms than Sony would ever get from us. We've also offered Sony guaranteed long-term access to Call of Duty, but they keep refusing. Why? Now, keep this section in mind when we read claims made by Jez Corden later, okay? They've offered this deal, Sony's refusing the deal. Now, she goes on to say that the CEO of SIE answered the question in Brussels in his words, quote, "I don't want a new Call of Duty deal. I just want to block your merger." Now, this is not the first time that she has put Sony on blast publicly. Maybe somebody should remind her that Sony made up 13% of Activision's revenue annually, and Microsoft was so low they weren't even on the report. Taking exclusivity money and benefiting from the relationship with Sony all the way up to now, only to be dunking on them publicly, is a bewildering display of biting the hand that has fed you very well. She probably is going to receive some type of substantive payout from this deal, so this is a self-focused interest. She's not taking up for the market or the consumer, she's seemingly taking up for herself. I don't know why you would sully or damage a relationship with Sony when you have been benefiting so greatly from a relationship with Sony up to now. So, let's just say what needs to be said. Jim Ryan being against the deal and being against the merger isn't news. It's not controversial. They've not been shy about this from the beginning. You've been propagandized. They're trying to make it seem as though, well, this deal should go through, and mean Jim Ryan just finally came out and got exposed. No, they've been against the deal from the beginning. They haven't been shy about being against the deal, but it's being framed in such a way because there's this passive undercurrent of presumption that this deal is good and it's going to be great for the consumer, and only some big evil overlord would try to stand in the way of this deal. They've made it clear from the very first time there was some sort of a deal offered that they weren't interested in a deal. They weren't interested in this merger going through. This is being spun up into anti-Sony propaganda to make Jim Ryan and Sony look desperate and pathetic. These are words I'm seeing thrown around by people who are supposed to be reliable sources of information, and they're taking up a very strong ideological position that the CEO of a company is desperate and crying and pathetic. These are the words that they use. That's not reporting. That's propaganda. You're spreading just nonsense at that point. What is desperate and pathetic is your misleading coverage and your willful dishonesty from your pro-Xbox positions. Rather than reporting on what's going on and giving people the facts, it's pathetic and misleading to be dishonest. Being Western-based and rooted in the Xbox culture is tainting the coverage of this so heavily, it's honestly embarrassing. The need to deal, the deal to go through will be better for their channels and their coverage. You have to see that. Some of the people reporting on this have a vested interest in this deal going through. They don't care about you. They don't care about gamers. They care about the money that they will make if the deal goes through. More property, bigger reach for Microsoft. They have a financial and monetary interest in the deal going through. They might as well work for Microsoft. You have to see that. So much of the reporting is tied to that. They are not in favor of the deal for you. They're in favor of the deal for themselves. Now let's look at Jez Corden's coverage. He has an article entitled "Sony's Position on Microsoft Activision Deal for Xbox Was Just Fully Exposed." It wasn't fully exposed. They've been against the deal from the beginning. This isn't news, but again, that's how it's being framed. The subtext on his article was SIE CEO Jim Dance Moves Ryan, so he's given him a nickname, tries a bit of lying. So he's accusing Jim Ryan of lying in the byline. Like right at the top of his article, he's accusing Jim Ryan of lying. Well, let's see how he substantiates it, because if you're going to accuse a person of lying, it should be pretty easy to substantiate that, since so much of this is in ink. There's documents, there's public statements, there's official reports. Like, it shouldn't be that hard to substantiate the fact that this guy is lying. Here's a quote from the article. Sony claimed that Microsoft has not attempted to reach out to them to negotiate. That's an interesting claim. That claim was directly contradicted by Activision CCO and EVP for Corporate Affairs today, noting that SIE President Jim Ryan said behind closed doors that Sony's intent is not to negotiate, but to simply block the deal. This is dishonest framing. None of this is true. They've not claimed that Microsoft hasn't reached out to negotiate, and his response is saying, I don't want a new Call of Duty deal. They've rejected the Call of Duty deal since September of 2022, if you track the history of this. This isn't a new development. He conveniently does not directly quote Sony. He does not directly quote Jim Ryan to show that there's a lie or there's dishonesty or that Sony's out here claiming, yeah, they won't engage in negotiations with us. Sony hasn't claimed that anywhere. I looked. Nowhere in the documents, nowhere in the public statements. Nobody else is reporting that. Nobody's claiming that, oh yeah, Sony said they won't Microsoft won't negotiate. It's not true. Jim Ryan spoke publicly about this when he thought private communications was going to stay private. This is in September of 2022 when he called the initial offer for 3 additional years of Call of Duty inadequate. Do you remember that? Do you remember all the coverage that he called it inadequate because all of a sudden there's private communications being blasted out to the public? The beginning of the PR game began at that point. Microsoft attempting to put public pressure on Sony to come to the table and agree to the deal. And they were like, we don't want to. Your offer's inadequate. 3+ years? Get out of here. So that's a concession that some attempt at a deal has been made. This is a falsifying movement against what Jez Corden is claiming. That falsifies the claim. But wait, there's more. Pulling from VGCharts.com, the UK regulators, the CMA, have published the Sony Interactive Entertainment response to Microsoft's remedies over its Activision Blizzard acquisition. And it's stunning because in this article that isn't quoted by Jez, Sony is engaging with the proposal from Microsoft, which, why would they claim Microsoft's not attempted to engage in a proposal? Because again, the quote from Jez is, Sony also claimed that Microsoft hasn't attempted to reach out to them to negotiate. That's not true. Listen to the following. Sony claims that Microsoft's proposal of a 10-year legally binding deal to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation is not enough to protect PlayStation's access to the Call of Duty franchise. Direct quote here. In the intervening period, Microsoft has not shown any real commitment to reaching a negotiated outcome. That's what happens when you skim. If you misread that or skim that, you might make it seem like, oh, they're not reaching out. No, they've not shown any real commitment in reaching a negotiated outcome. They have dragged their feet, engaged only when they sense the regulatory outlook darkening, and favored negotiating with the media over engaging SIE. That is a false framing of this statement. This statement is not saying that Microsoft won't engage in negotiations or they won't talk to us. It's saying, listen, they're only doing this with the public primarily and with us because they worried that the regulatory bodies weren't going to let it go through, okay? That sounds an awful lot like an admission that Microsoft has reached out and Sony finds the deal lacking. What Sony is claiming is that Microsoft has only engaged when it seems like the deal is under threat. And they're right. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. Microsoft doesn't want to make concessions if they don't have to. I don't think Microsoft is wrong in that. They're trying to protect the deal as much as Sony's trying to get the deal to either not go through or maximize concessions. They're both doing the same thing, so there's no right or wrong here. Like, Microsoft should drag their feet and should only make concessions and commitments if they're forced to. That's smart business. No one's saying that that's wrong. I'm not saying that that's wrong. But Sony's saying, listen, they're trying to frame it like they're out here making some deal with us. They're only doing it when it looks like the deal's not going to go through. Phil Spencer initially only offered the 3 additional years to Jim Ryan in September of 2022. Then, when the regulators expressed concerns about the deal and concerns about Call of Duty, what did Microsoft do? Well, suddenly they're offering Nintendo 10 years, and they're willing to offer Sony 10 years. Do you see what's happening? This is exactly what Sony's attempting to do. This is smart business. If this deal's going to go through, we don't want it to, but if it goes through, we're going to maximize concessions out of this deal. There's no crying or desperation here. It's chess playing, but you're only getting the bias-laden coverage that wants to frame it as crying or desperation. Sony is zeroing in on behavioral remedies not being sufficient. I want you to listen to the nuance here. Sony said, the proposal fails to provide adequate protection for PlayStation's access to Call of Duty or for competition. Instead, it reveals Microsoft's lack of commitment to ensuring full and equal access to Call of Duty, confirms the risk of a behavioral remedy outlined in the guidelines, and reinforces SIE's belief that Microsoft intends to use Call of Duty strategically to dominate the gaming sector. So this is nuanced. It's far more nuanced than the pro Xbox guys would have you believe. There's no crying, there's no desperation, there's nuanced concern. Point number 20, if you go to the document and you actually read it, instead of reading an article that just references it and never quotes it, if you actually go to the article, it's 22 pages long. Point number 20 said the following, because I actually read it and I'm actually going to quote it to you since that's vitally important in the reporting on this. Here's the direct quote from point number 20. What this is getting at is behavioral commitments aren't quite the same as licensure commitments, and even licensure commitments are not a guarantee. Quote, it is not clear how any behavioral commitment could adequately address such a concern in a dynamic industry such as gaming. Essentially what they're saying is a behavioral commitment ain't good enough. The gaming industry changes at a rapid rate. You just sort of making this behavioral commitment isn't good enough. They go on. Even a monitoring trustee backed by a licensing commitment base on fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory, FRAND, if you've ever seen that, FARNAND, these terms, intractable practical problems. So it basically, what they're saying is, even if you had a monitoring trustee backed by a licensing commitment, there are other problems that aren't answered. Here's what they outline. Who would set prices and how? What level of information sharing and communications would be permissible? How would it be determined whether prices were fair? How would non-discrimination be ensured given that Microsoft would be making a purely internal accounting transfer? And who would make the determination as to fairness, reasonableness, and non-discrimination? The situation is therefore diametrically different to a regulated industry where the CMA has, on a few occasions, considered licensing commitments that a sectoral regular has the expertise and resources to act as a price regulator on an ongoing basis. But Jim Ryan is pathetic, and Sony is desperate and crying. There are so many other levels to this that they're wanting concessions on. They're saying, listen, just because you make a behavioral commitment doesn't mean all these other intangibles, all these other questions are just automatically answered. Here's some more choice quotes that are not being quoted by the misleading coverage. Sony claims that Microsoft's proposal does not offer a commitment to parity that is legally enforceable. Now, obviously, the pro-Xbox guys run with this headline. It's like, well, Sony's scared that they're going to get a crappy version of Call of Duty. Listen to what was actually stated as opposed to false summaries. Quote, Microsoft's proposal does not offer a clear commitment to parity that is legally hard-edged and enforceable, despite its repeated public utterances to the contrary. Do you hear what's happening here? They want something rigid in ink, not some vague promise on Twitter. Here's more. Under its proposal, Microsoft is obliged to use redacted parity, so that number's redacted, between PlayStation and Xbox and their respective Microsoft Game Studios services. This is a vague and weak commitment that does not give SIE the assurance that Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation on terms that would maintain PlayStation's competitiveness. They're saying your promise is vague. This is a chess game. They want rigid concessions about something that generates tons of profit for them. This is what you should do as a business owner. This isn't desperation. This isn't a tantrum. It's not pathetic. It's what you're supposed to do. You're protecting your interests. If they weren't doing this, they would likely be fired. You have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders, and if you sit idly by and watch your revenue and profits be threatened by a potential deal, you're really, really bad for business and not long for the business world. Sony added, Microsoft's proposal allows a wide scope for Microsoft to deviate from its weak commitment on parity. Sony claims that Microsoft would not be incentivized to invest in the performance of Call of Duty on PlayStation, as a weakened PlayStation would provoke switching to Xbox. That's all you get. That's all you get from the anti-Sony guys, the pro-Xbox guys. Just that Sony's scared that they're going to get a bad version. No, they're drilling down on the vagueness and the lack of clarity on parity. And as they say at the beginning of this, right, it's not legally enforceable. It's not even something that could be enforced once the deal goes through. And this is where many people are missing the forest for the trees. Sony is pushing for as many pro-Sony concessions as they can get before the deal goes through. That's what they should be doing. Folks calling it desperation, folks calling it crying, they're propagandizing you. They're misleading you. They want you to look at Sony with like this weird critical eye, like, how dare they protect their profit and money? They're so greedy. Let me tell you about Microsoft in just a minute if you think they're some pure charitable company, okay? They are playing a chess game for concessions. Think about how this is all transpired. They called 3 extra years inadequate. That's initially what they were offered. 3 additional years. That's it. How far have we come since then? That was September, and it's only March. In 6 months' time, the discussion is now about complete parity of Call of Duty on PlayStation for 10 years. That's what you call a win. If you can get your competitor to concede to things that benefit you, that's a win. That's what they're pushing for. They're protecting their revenue and profits by saying, listen, you need to give us more than that. Every single time Sony has made complaints or uttered concerns, look at what it has done to Microsoft. It has forced Microsoft to make concessions. That's good business. They're protecting their interest. The reason that pro Xbox coverage is spinning this is because Sony's doing the same thing that Xbox is doing. You just don't like it. You're letting your bias get in the way. Microsoft and Xbox are doing everything they can to get the deal to go through in their favor. And they should. I don't fault them from that. Anybody that faults Microsoft for that's a fool. That's what they should be doing. That's good business. Sony's allowed to do the exact same thing. If you're going to say that Microsoft can throw around $70 billion and attempt to gobble up a whole portion of the market so that they can compete and have an interest in the market and a foothold, if you're okay with that and you're okay with them fighting for that, then there's nothing wrong with Sony doing the same thing. This is how businesses get to the size and the status that they are. You think Microsoft and Sony got to the level that they are by being nice? By being kind to their competitors? Look at Microsoft's history. That's not what they have done, which is maybe another reason to be concerned about the deal, but that's another story. This is what people should do. They should report accurately. Windows Central's Jez Corden said this in his coverage. Sony claims to the CMA, so the 22-page document, Sony's claims to the CMA can be read in full over here, and he links to it, and are easily debunked, blow by anyone with a shred of logic and a crayon. And then he doesn't do it. If you can debunk it blow by blow with basic logic and a crayon, then do it. Post an article. It wouldn't take that long. It's only 22 pages. Make a video. Blow by blow. Do a 20-part series. I don't care if you're going to claim and assert that a multi-billion-dollar corporation and some CEO, they're so stupid, they're so illogical that you can debunk their claims with crayon and a logic. Well, just do it. All you need is some crayons and some logic. But he doesn't. Not once in his article does he even directly quote their response. He links to it, and then he starts paraphrasing, and in my opinion, he misrepresents the claims inside of it, and then he starts quoting Lulu Chang. If you're going to claim that Jim Ryan is lying and that a multi-billion-dollar corporation's official response to the CMA is so dumb that it could be debunked with simple logic and a crayon, then do it if it's that easy. I've seen other folks claiming that Sony said Microsoft won't offer them parity. This is more spin. They are claiming that the parity offer is too vague. But you would actually have to read the document to see that, as opposed to hot takes on Twitter or headline hunting or articles that just can't be bothered with actually quoting the document. So let me give you my thoughts and conclusions. I'm 22 minutes into my monologue, and I'm just getting to my thoughts and conclusions because that's what careful reporting and investigation should do. It should be painful. It should be slow. You should feel tired right now. There's a lot to this. And you're buying into 8-minute videos and hot takes and articles that are misleading you. So here are my thoughts and conclusions. Number one, it is clear that bias and self-interest isn't just clouding the coverage of this deal, it is dictating the coverage. Whether it's Lulu Chang, Jez Corden, or anyone else that has slanted this against Sony in their efforts to be pro-Xbox, it is not reporting, it is not fact-giving. It's propaganda. The second thing I want to say, defending Microsoft in this deal as if Sony is evil and desperate or dishonest is absolutely baffling to me. All companies of this size are shrewd, and they viciously protect their bottom lines. Like, I don't know. Can we think of an example of Microsoft being shrewd and viciously protecting their bottom lines? It's so... Oh, I just thought of one. Like miscategorizing employees so you don't have to pay them benefits. And then you get sued and you make it a company-wide policy that all contractual employees may not exceed 18 months to avoid paying them benefits. A policy, mind you, that is on record as being one of the leading causes for the developmental struggles of 343 when creating Halo Infinite. This is the company you're defending as if there's some plucky, kind-hearted underdog. A company that had to be sued because they were miscategorizing employees so they didn't have to pay them benefits, and their response was to make it a company policy. And it hurt Halo Infinite. This is who you're defending. Is Sony any better? No. They're shrewd. They're vicious. That's how they're Sony. That's why Microsoft's Microsoft. You're framing this as if Sony's some evil overlord and Microsoft's just trying to make their way in the world. It's garbage. It is a misleading, framed, bias-laden take. Both Sony and Microsoft got where they are by being shrewd and aggressive. Sony even cites in their response the numerous times that Microsoft has had to pay antitrust fines, and they do it willingly. That's the company that you want to hand 30% of the market to, or whatever the percentage that Activision Blizzard King represents. You want to hand a portion of the market to a company that willingly over the years will pay antitrust fines because they don't care. They don't care. You think this is some charitable movement to get you more games, and it's not. It is shrewd business dealings. And Sony's doing the exact same thing. They're being shrewd and aggressive. This could be another situation like that, and that's why I'm against the deal. It's way too much power. It's way too much controlling interest. So let me give you my conclusion so I can talk to the chat after almost 30 minutes of ranting. It is time for a new era of game coverage. It is time for a new era of the gaming press. We cannot fall prey to the propagandistic, tribalistic, false dichotomous coverage that is so true of Western news media in our common day. Hold outlets and content creators accountable for accuracy, for honesty, for integrity. Quit overlooking egregious slants and spins through omissions at best and deceptive tactics at worst. We should call for better reporting. We are in a position to do that. Gamers and gaming coverage should be better than this. There's no excuse for being partisan or tribalistic. It doesn't make any sense unless you track where the money's coming from. If you really think about it, so many people that are spinning this have a financial vested interest in the deal going through. We have the ability to do better research, deliver better information, and with all the tools that we have at our disposal, it's embarrassing and a shame that we're not getting it. That's my show open. That's it. That's what I hoped to say. And I wanted to do this show a couple of days ago because I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of it. We don't get news coverage in the gaming press. We don't. Demand better and be better. Time to hear them call you a Sony pony, even though you put in arguments against them too. Yeah, I am not at all trying to take up the position that like Sony is somehow some pure and awesome company either. They're shrewd. They're aggressive. That's literally, this isn't news. This isn't news. Check your pulse. I'm good. I wrote that this morning, and it feels almost like a manifesto. It's like we should be so better at reporting information these days. Good morning, feed. This is personal for me to some degree. It's personal for me. because I feel like the gaming press fails us. They failed me, and they fail you. They failed me in 2020, and they fail us every day this situation is covered. And I'm tired of it. Watch the entire Open at 2 times Talk Faster. Preach, Lono. Gaming press have shown they're only looking out for themselves. Look at all the biased reviewing they do. The world does not report on the real world news honestly, and we want gaming to be reported honestly. It's never going to happen. I love the rants. Thank you, Cowboy. Ethics in gaming journalism. Yeah, it's just, to me, I just don't understand it. I don't understand, like, all you have to do is spend an afternoon researching it. I just feel like they take advantage of the fact that, like, people look to them as trusted sources. And it's like, well, I don't need to go and research this. This guy just told me that that's what's going on. Thank you, Lido, for 14 months. A massive ovation for Lono for this rant. This is why I happily pay for this membership. Thank you, Lido. Guys, let's have a big day. That was tiring. That was long. That was super long. I wasn't sure how long it was going to be. That was 18 pages of notes. Because I wanted to do adequate research. I was like, oh, where is Sony saying this? Where was that stated? Who is saying that? Why would they say that? What's going on? I'm still recording. Okay, there you go, Creature. Little bit of extra in the recording for you, Creature. Lono in his bag this morning. Great opening. Thank you. Sony bad, green good, more games for me. Nice to hear level-headed approach. Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, that was my conclusion. It is time for a new era. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. Right? I'm gonna always strive for that here. I am. I'm never gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna cover this differently because of who I like. Do you want to know what I sometimes do or don't do according to the public's response? Sometimes I don't cover this because we don't want to deal with the hate. And I told Creature, I said, no, let's be men of action. I don't care if people are going to come in and hate and be nasty and call me names. I don't care. No, we will be men of action. I'm not going to do that. If you're going to come in and call me names and be nasty, well, we'll just walk you right back out the door. Thank you, Vengeance, for 5 gifted members. Bill Pogge, Brad, Pease, Mark, Kurt Mason, and Haxman, and then Divine the God Renews for 8 months. Thank you so much. This has been one of your best openings. Thank you. That was all passion. That was all fire. I came back from an early meeting this morning, and I was like, I looked at my dry erase board, and I was like, this is the show I want to do. I'm writing it right now. And so I pulled up a couple of articles, and like, I got more and more frustrated as I tried to research it. I was like, nobody is telling the truth. I think that's why I've always gravitated towards you. We may disagree, but we don't abide false information and lies. I hope that's magnetic. I hope we can develop some kind of a magnetism. Why did I put 8 over there? Whoops. I hope we can develop some kind of a magnetism. It's like, aren't you sick of this? Like, aren't you tired of getting fed half the story? Stop the Cap, you were at book club. Yes, it's something that I'm doing at my church. Yes, it's a thing where men get together and go through books and try to be better men. Like, yes, that's what I'm doing on Friday mornings. I felt the fire behind your eyes when you asked for journalistic integrity. Yes, give it to me. Where are the men and women of this day who have the courage to say what's true? Where are they? Where are you? You weren't there for me 3 years ago, and you're not here for us today. You're not here. Well, then I'll be that person if I have to walk out and say the stuff that's going to get hate or get anger from people. That's fine. I'll do it because clearly you won't. Clearly you won't. You can't be trusted to do what's right and to report and to be accurate. Zero courage. Thank you, Detonator, for 5. Big Juicer, Zen, Mark Fulmer, The Learning Curve. Amber, you guys all got gifted members. You're the best. A 5 spot from Phaedrus Socrates says thanks. Sven with a 10 spot. No troll comments today. Just thanks for writing all that, bud. Made it easy to understand everything. Thank you, Sven. Raymond with the 3 spot. Love your honesty. Don't see it very often. 18 months from Ant. Hit like and grab yourself a membership. This guy's trying to better himself. Get him. But that's the thing. You found the whole story, so it's out there if you want it. People aren't looking for the truth. They're looking for entertainment, and that's why all the coverage is the way that it is, right? I will never, ever make it about one side of the equation, but when you are in the position of power, the greater impetus is on you. You have the platform, you have the voice, you have the audience. You have a duty to tell the truth. Yes, of course, there are people that are looking for confirmation bias, and they're just looking to be entertained, and they just want their sentimentalities to be tickled. Sure. There's shared blame. Always. But it's just like when some leader misleads a group of people. The group of people are culpable and liable, but the greater responsibility falls on the person in the position of power. Always. Uncle Liberty, thank you so much for coming on in. Especially solemn when it's couched as reporting. You're couching it as reporting. You're couching it as giving information, and you're not. Just because that's what people are looking for doesn't justify their actions. Lion says, this opening is why I enjoy this channel. This man is educating the community with a level analysis. Too many are just worried about views and being scandalous. I appreciate that. I really do. 5 spot from TJ Rage. I'm going to laugh if someone come in and ask for a recap. Good words. Could I get a recap? My open was 30 minutes. This is pulling the curtain back on a cesspit. The amount of time someone inside the development mentions a problem and then gets told to walk it back, the 10 out of 10 reviews, the quick move-ons. That's right. Creators can do that, but don't you dare try to label it as news. Yes, but here's my issue with it, Eugene. Even if you try to claim, well, I'm just a content creator, I'm not the news, I'm not the news media, but you're positioning yourself as an authority. You're positioning yourself as someone who's delivering information. There's a lot of health gurus on YouTube who go by the names of like Dr. Bob, but the fine print shows they're not medical doctors. That feels a little improper. That's right. Lono and Creature sure do their research. I respect it. We spend so much time on the phone. This morning, it was all on me. We didn't spend any time looking into this yesterday because he was like, well, let that cook over the weekend. We'll do that on Monday. And then I started looking at this morning, and I was like, my blood just got hotter and hotter and hotter. And I was like, no, gloves are coming off. No, I'm done with this. I'm so sick of this. Enough is enough. Quit lying to people. Quit it. It's so frustrating. It's personal for me at some levels. It is. That's why I get way more fired up. It's not just about a patch or a bad launch of a game. It's personal. Lono broke down what is actually happening between Sony and Xbox vis-a-vis the Activision deal while also scolding the gaming press. If you label yourself as opinion or blog or whatever, that's okay. I don't think they're justified in covering things that way, says Solemn. Just that that's their reasoning for doing so, that's all. Not saying it's right or should be. For sure. This is... And see, I come at it from the other side, Solemn. That was great. That was a great intro for being written at the last minute. Lots of great info. Thank you. I put a lot of time into that. I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, the show's going to be late. But you know what? It's more about accuracy and truth than just being, I got to go live right now. What did Denzel say? It's not about being right, it's about being first. It's not about saying what's true, it's about being first. And I was like, no, I'm not falling prey to that. DB Cooper says, great opening today, pump me up for work. You have a power cosmic You have the power cosmic with that fire shirt. Oh, thank you. Thank you, DB Cooper. I forgot to update this. 10 memberships on the day. Thank you guys so much. Keep bringing the gifted members and the love. I appreciate it. I'm not disputing the game journalism needs a change, but isn't Ryan's comments at some level contradict his stance on why he opposes the deal? Hasn't their focus been on Call of Duty? Okay, that's a fair question, K-Billy, but think about it like this. The focus on Call of Duty has been a PR game that Phil Spencer started in September, right? Like, oh, we'll give you 3 more years. And then Jim Ryan's like, well, I thought this was private communications. I mean, obviously we were concerned about Call of Duty, but your 3-year offer is inadequate, right? And you have to think of it from this perspective. Both things can be true, K-Billy. You can be against the deal while also pressing against Call of Duty and attempting to get concessions. Do you want to know why both things are true? Because they are. It's a multifaceted business strategy to say, we're going to attempt to get this deal blocked. But in the event that it goes through, we are going to squeeze concessions out of this deal to protect our interests. That's why you cannot follow people who break things down into dichotomous coverage. They're nuanced, right? There's nuances to this. I'm a fan of yours. I backed you throughout the controversy. It makes me sad to see you shill for Sony. Unsubbed. Good luck to you. I don't know who you are, and I won't miss your support, because falsely summarizing me as being a shill for Sony means you don't support me. It means you're a liar. Mick Waffle coming in with a gifted membership. Thank you so much, Mick Waffle. Go ahead and ban him. Get him out of here. I don't even want him to be able to respond. You take your dishonesty and go somewhere else. You're probably on an alt trying to trigger me, and you've failed. Roger at 14 months. Just caught up to live. Amazingly accurate as always. Thank you for the great content. Thank you, Roger. There's layers like an onion. Would love a debate on this topic of Lono versus Jez. There's no debate. There's no debate, because I'm not saying that Sony is right and Xbox is wrong. I'm saying your reporting is inaccurate. There's no debate to be had. What are we going to debate? What are we going to debate? Not quoting the document? Misrepresenting Sony's statements? I don't understand what we would debate. There is no debate. Now, we could debate opinions about, why he's in favor of the deal and I'm not in favor of the deal, but that would have to come after significant revisions to articles. Like, come on, man, that was a bad article. You can't just come out and say that Jim Ryan is lying and Sony made a claim and then don't back it up. You can't do that. What? Like I said the other day, harsh judgment requires strict inquiry. I'll say this also. Harsh claims require evidence. It's that simple. And this is personal for me, if you're going to walk out into the public and use your platform to accuse somebody of something, maybe, just maybe, substantiate it with evidence. If you don't do that, I have a serious problem with you. A serious problem. You can't call the CEO of a company a liar and be like, yeah, he's a liar. Why? Oh, he was. He is. Well, they said this. Where'd they say that? Oh, I can't be bothered to quote it. Because listen, if you directly quote the document, it clearly shows that that's not what's going on. Sony not once claimed, yeah, Microsoft hasn't offered us any negotiations. That's not true. And yet he claimed it in his article. It's like, why are you claiming that? Why are you claiming that? That's not true. If you're going to make claims about a CEO, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and their official response to a regulator, then prove it. Quote the document. Show me. You have to respect Lono's work. The man did his job researching this, does an amazing intro, keeps it real, and gets views. Putting clickbaiters to shame. Yeah, saying a CEO is crying and lying? Like, what in the world? Let's be careful and draw a line between content creators generally and those who claim to be unbiased news. I'd say different levels of duty apply to them. I don't know if I agree with that, and here's why, Zubair. dishonesty in coverage is never acceptable. It isn't. Unless you're blatantly doing parody for comedy's sake, I don't think it's ever acceptable. Oh, well, it was an opinion piece. So that gives you a right to lie? That gives you a right to be deceptive? That's not a blank check. Well, clearly, this is an opinion blog. Therefore, I can just lie to the public. What? I don't agree with that. There is a social and moral imperative on a person who makes claims and declarations publicly. Those should be accurate and true. You're talking spin. This is the thing, though. I think there's a fine line between spin and just lying, and I feel like that is getting stretched so thin the dough is breaking. It's like, well, come on. Shut up, Vengeance. Player 1 with a $2 tip. Thank you. My YouTube account and Discord were all messed up, but I finally got back in, says Suede. Words aren't enough to applaud and support your open this morning. Well done. And can you say it again louder to the rest of the non-gaming press in the back so they can hear you? Oh, I can't take on the non-gaming press. And now your mama knows he'll disagree with this? He'll disagree with what? They're lying because Sony is trying to put a claim that Microsoft's never offered us a deal, meanwhile saying they don't want a deal to go through. That's the lie right there, JC. Where did Sony ever claim Microsoft never offers us a deal? Where's that claim? Because that's what Jez said, and you're in here spreading it. Where did Sony say that? I need the quote. I need the document. I do. Where did Sony ever claim that? Microsoft never offered us a deal. Okay, where'd they claim that? Do you have any idea how nonsensical that claim is, by the way? Do you have any idea how nonsensical that claim is? Sony has both publicly and privately said the deals that they're offering us are not good enough. The deals that you're putting on the table are not good enough. They said they aren't willing to negotiate. That's a major difference. Exactly. See, you've been propagandized. You're running. Look at the way you typed it. It's like you went and read the talking points. Yeah, Sony's claiming Microsoft never offered us a deal. Sony never claimed that. They never claimed that. If you read the document, which I did painstakingly this morning multiple times, this is what it said. Where's the one that I think is being spun for this? Where is it? That's about parody. That's the other one. Hang on. That's about the behavioral remedies. It's 18 pages. Bear with me. Bear with me. Here it is. Player 1 with another $2 tip. This is the quote from Sony. In the intervening period, Microsoft has not shown any real commitment to reaching a negotiated outcome. But you're being told they won't. Yeah, Sony's claiming Microsoft won't offer us a deal. That's not what they said. Here's the rest of the quote. They have dragged their feet, engaged only when they sense the regulatory outlook darkening, and favored negotiating with the media over engaging with Sony. They are not claiming that Microsoft won't engage in a deal with them. That would be nonsensical, because in the very same document, they reject Microsoft's proposals. The proposal fails to provide adequate protection for PlayStation's access to Call of Duty for competition. Why? That doesn't make any sense. In the same document, Sony discusses the proposal. My man Rissick coming in with a 20 bomb. Do you guys want this Just Dance stream or not? That's a big one. I'm not going to read all those names. Check the chat. You might have gotten gifted a membership. Don't you see that when you actually read the document and you actually look at the nuance, Sony is not simultaneously claiming Microsoft won't engage in proposals. Oh, but their proposal fails to provide adequate protection. That doesn't even make any sense. That doesn't even make any sense. Didn't Sony claim the exact opposite, that they were being harassed? No, they claimed that Microsoft subpoenaing performance reviews was harassment, and the judge agreed with Sony, and the judge denied that subpoena. Sony had to give over documentation about their exclusivity deals, but the judge agreed with Sony and said, listen, you don't need their performance reviews. That's ridiculous. Stop it. That's what they labeled harassment. And again, if you don't read the documents and the direct quotes, it's real easy to forget how this all played out. Be careful, everything you're saying is true and you're going to get disappeared. I'm not worried about that. Both Sony and Microsoft are right to fight for this, but Sony said Microsoft are more willing to negotiate through the media than with them. Meanwhile, Microsoft just signed a deal with Nvidia. Right, but Miguel, look what they're saying. They're like, listen, they've only done this when the deal's under threat. That's true, because they were initially offered like 3+ years in September last year, and then they don't get offered anything else. And then the 10-year deal started coming out when the regulatory bodies expressed concerns about Call of Duty. Microsoft's not wrong for doing that. Microsoft's not wrong for doing that, by the way. You're getting balanced coverage from me. That's what Microsoft should do. Microsoft should wait until it's absolutely necessary to do concessions. That's smart business. Sony should try to squeeze as many concessions out of this deal as possible in the event it doesn't get blocked. They're both doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Find me an Xbox Pro channel that'll tell you that they're both doing what they're supposed to do. I'm anti-Xbox. I'm sitting here saying, listen, that's exactly what Microsoft should do. We're not going to make concessions until we absolutely have to. Are you kidding me? We're spending $70 billion. We don't want to do any concessions. Wait till they might have to make concessions about mobile if Apple or China adds pressure. Player one with the $2 tip. How many of these reporters have stock in Microsoft? Hilly with a 5 spot. Contempt for the conman and compassion for the conned. They will come into chat and they need to support and understanding they are being fed BS. I appreciate that, Hilly. Hang on. What did you say, JC? JC said, Sony said, quote, I don't want a new Call of Duty deal. I just want to block your merger, end quote. Yes, they've been attempting to block the merger from moment one. Saying Microsoft has not shown any real commitment to a negotiated outcome while they offered Call of Duty for 10 years. Yes, and it's Sony's opinion that that's not what they want. And there's 22 pages that elaborates that, but you're cherry picking. Sony went on to say, to substantiate their claim that they're not actually trying to negotiate a deal here, they said that the commitment to parity is vague. But again, your YouTubers and your headline hunters ran with, Sony's scared Microsoft will give them bad Call of Duty. Bam. No, that's not what was said. The document clearly stated that Sony found the commitments to parity to be vague and not even legally enforceable. Even under a license overseen by a trustee, it's not enforceable. There's so much nuance to this. But again, if you don't read the document, you're like, well, why would Sony say that? Microsoft offered him 10 years. Yeah, and Sony's like, that's not good enough. I don't want another deal. I got a good deal right now. Imagine you're Sony. Imagine you're Sony. You make up 13% of Activision's annual revenue, and 48% of the people who buy Call of Duty buy it on your platform. Why would you need a good deal? Why would you need a new deal? You've got a great deal. I bet the document says in good faith a bunch, and that's not enforceable. Imagine that you're making tons of money. Imagine you're McDonald's. And you're making tons of money off of Coca-Cola. I mean, just buckets of cash. It's great. It's just great. So look at all this Coca-Cola money, baby. And somebody comes to the table and says, yeah, we want to buy Coca-Cola, and we're willing to give you a new deal. And here's the deal we're willing to give you. You know what you're going to say? I want you to take your deal. I want you to turn it sideways. And I want you to shove it, because I don't need a new deal. I'm making great money right now. Wait, why do I need your deal? Don't you see? Like, you're acting like Microsoft's doing Sony a favor when it would be the other way around. Sony would be doing Microsoft a favor. Like, what? We don't need a new deal. What are you talking about? We have an amazing deal. We're printing money, baby. Call of Duty's really good for us. But again, when you accept spin, when you accept propaganda, it's, well, Sony's being desperate and Sony's being greedy. No, Sony's protecting their interests, which is exactly what they're supposed to do. And Microsoft's protecting their interests, which is exactly what they're supposed to do. Both companies are doing what they're supposed to do, but you're getting reporting that's slanting it and making it look like Sony's doing something evil or wrong or desperate or pathetic. I couldn't believe the thumbnail that a YouTuber had last night. Like, they put tears on Jim Ryan's face and then, this is pathetic. No, your coverage is pathetic. Your dishonesty is pathetic. And you want to talk about desperation. Imagine building your brand around Xbox. Imagine building your brand around the weaker gaming ecosystem. Gee, I wonder why you have a vested interest in this deal going through. You want to talk about desperate? You're desperate. Quit spinning this. Quit misleading the public. You're desperate. Your coverage is pathetic. CEOs and multi-billion-dollar corporations are doing everything they're supposed to do. They're protecting their interests. They're maximizing profit. Because if they don't do that, they could be sued by their shareholders. Seriously, think about it. Imagine Jim Ryan going to the table and being like, well, I don't want a YouTuber to think I'm desperate or crying, so go ahead. Yeah, it's fine. We'll take a lesser deal on Call of Duty and risk potential future parity loss and feature loss. That's fine. Millions of dollars at stake, but the last thing I want to do is be seen as desperate. I don't want anybody thinking I'm pathetic. He'd get fired. The shareholders would sue him. The board would fire him. It'd be over. Thank you so much, Christopher Wright, for a 20 gifted bomb. Jiminy Christmas, we're having a big day. 51 members on the day. Wade says, where's the line between spin and propaganda? I'm with Lono that dishonesty should never be passed off as news. Right. You spoke at the beginning about being bad for the consumer. Yeah. Here's a question. If you can submit questions to any of these guys' podcasts or shows or anything like that, here's the question you want to just keep asking them. Yes, I got a question for you guys. Yeah, just one question. It's a very simple question. In the history of tech consolidation and mergers, can you point to a single time that has been measurably good for the consumer? No? Oh, okay. Isn't 10 years a better deal than they've had with ABK alone? Length of time doesn't dictate quality of a deal, K-Billy. Let's say you have an amazing, lucrative marketing contract with a company. It pays you really, really good. Right? And then they want to renegotiate. And they're like, well, we'll give you 10 years. But then when you read the fine print, you're making less. You're like, well, wait a minute. This isn't a good deal for me. I'm not saying that's what's going on, K-Billy, but what I'm saying is just giving them 10 years doesn't make it a better deal automatically. Think about it. Why are you lying? What am I lying about? Think about it. Sony's looking at the deal and saying, let's do everything we can to stop this deal. But if a deal goes through, we need to get as many possible concessions out of this as possible. So K-Billy's question, haven't they offered parity? Sony pushed back on that and said that the parity language was vague. Under its proposal, direct quote from Sony here, You're going to get more quoting of the document here than any of the people that cover this, because quoting the document would make their slant and their bias dismantle and crumble. Under its proposal, Microsoft is obliged to use redacted parity between PlayStation and Xbox and their respective Microsoft Game Studio services. This is a vague and weak commitment that does not give SIE the assurance that Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation on terms that would maintain PlayStation's competitiveness. They're specifically talking about the parity promise and saying it's vague. It's vague. Before they said this, they said this. They said Microsoft's proposal does not offer a clear commitment to parity that is legally hard-edged and enforceable, despite its repeated public utterances to the contrary. Don't you see what Sony is saying? They're saying, listen, this isn't even enforceable. This isn't even legally hard-edged. It's vague. But you want to go out to the public like, we promised them parity. We don't know what the problem here is. Read the document. Read the document. It's clear. It's crystal clear. I'm not saying Sony's right and Xbox is wrong. I'm going to keep stressing that. I'm not saying one side's right and one side's wrong. I'm saying you're getting half of the story, and the half of the story that you're getting is completely slanted. They're not even remotely representing this accurately to you at all. Christopher Wright with a $20 tip through Super Chat. If COD goes on Game Pass, it should be on PS Plus. That's fair. And if not, that's a problem, and that's unfair to consumers on the PS platform. I believe that Microsoft has offered that kind of parity. But see, that's the thing. So Sony doesn't want to put Call of Duty on PS Plus, at least not day and date. They might want to put it on there later, but they would never want to put Call of Duty on their day and date on PS Plus. If Microsoft does a day and date on Game Pass, Sony doesn't want to do that because Sony makes tons of money on it. That would be a huge mistake. Let me get this right. It's okay for Sony to grab a bunch of smaller studios. That's okay. But when Microsoft grabs one big studio, that's not okay. The fact, okay, hang on, Edmund. Number one, that's a false representation of my position. Number two, referring to ABK as one big studio is, you should be on their podcast because that's just as dishonest as some of the coverage I've seen. Activision Blizzard is not one big studio. It's a conglomerate of studios. It's quite... Okay, just for comparison's sake, think about how Take-Two is. Think about how big Take-Two is. Take-Two is estimated if somebody tried to buy them, it'd be like 20 to 25 billion. This is a $70 billion acquisition. What are you even saying? This is not one big studio. And to be fair, nobody in here said you can't buy studios. Microsoft bought Ninja Theory. I wasn't in the streets angry about that. I'm worried about Hellblade 2. We'll see how it turns out. I don't like games under Microsoft's ownership, okay? Microsoft bought Bethesda. Microsoft bought Moon Studios, who makes Ori. Sony buys Bungie. Yeah, Sony potentially might buy Ubi or Square. That I've never said, oh, nobody can do it. Only Sony can do that. See, again, that's propagandistic framing. That is propagandistic framing. Anybody who's against this deal, that's what they get. That's what I get couched as. That's what I get couched as. Oh, you're a Sony pony. It's okay for Sony to do it, but not Xbox. What? No. I don't care who's trying to do this acquisition. If it was Amazon, I'd be against it. If it was Google, I would be against it. I don't care who's writing the check. I'm against it because it's too big of a consolidating effect, and I'm not defending, as I've said numerous times today, I'm not defending Sony or Xbox in this deal. I'm saying they're both literally doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're protecting their interests, but you're listening to people report it in such a way that makes Microsoft look like some plucky underdog and Sony some big evil corporation. You're missing the point and the fact that Sony is fear-mongering. No, what? Where are they fear-mongering? Note if Microsoft didn't do that when they bought Bungie. It's insulting to suggest that Microsoft would sabotage a Call of Duty on PlayStation. Full summary of the document. Go read the document. That's not what they said. They said that it's not hard-edged and legally enforceable, and it's therefore vague and leaves things open to interpretation. Man's feeding you BS to say Microsoft bought Moon Studios. The guys who make Ori, aren't they under Microsoft? Or are they just published by Microsoft? Just because I got that wrong doesn't mean I'm feeding you lies. Moon Studios, owned by... Moon Studios is an independent video game development founded in 2010. Okay, so they're still independent. I thought they bought them. I made a mistake. Jiminy Christmas. I thought they bought them. Microsoft has bought companies was just the point that I was making, and I didn't do that. I didn't say, oh my gosh, they bought Bethesda. Oh, that's terrible. Oh my gosh, they've got the Coalition. That doesn't matter to me. Owning a studio or buying a studio is not what's up for concern here. They left Microsoft. They went indie. So they were owned by them at one time, weren't they? I just must have missed the headline that they went independent. I swore that they owned them at least for a time. I'm not hating on Microsoft at all. Those of you that are coming in and trying to couch me as that, like, yeah, John Colin, that's a fitting last name. You said, well, since when have you been a Sony pony? The fact that you can't think outside of those two categories, you've been propagandized. You can only think in those terms. Because I'm being critical of the deal or I'm being critical of the coverage of the deal, I'm a Sony pony. Well, you got to be able to think outside of that. You need to be able to think outside of just dichotomous thinking. Like, I absolutely am in the corner of Starfield. I'm in the corner of the Xbox ecosystem. I've been on record as telling people that Microsoft is a sleeping giant. If they can get their ecosystem endemic to the PC world with both Game Pass as well as a unified platform, so they could approach developers and say, when you make a game for Xbox ecosystem, it's on the Xbox, it's on the cloud, and it's on PC, that could be an absolute big win for them. I'm on record as saying all these things in the last 12 months, 6 months, but me being against the deal makes me a Sony pony. Like, there's no way to say this. That's just a stupid take. That's just stupid. It's like, here's a guy that thinks Microsoft is a sleeping giant and they've made good inroads with cloud and an ecosystem that could be endemic to PC, and it's a 900 IQ play if they successfully buy Activision Blizzard. It's actually a pretty brilliant play because they could bolster the value of Game Pass in their ecosystem while simultaneously selling very lucrative property on the platform that sells more copies of basically everything, because if you look at the ecosystem of Sony, sales are significantly higher over there and their market saturation is significantly higher than the Xbox, making it a 900 IQ play. Here's a guy who says all that and thinks all that, but because he's against the deal, he's a Sony pony. You are propagandized. In fairness, I watch your show a lot, and you definitely do prefer Sony. But what does that have to do with anything I just said? Having a preference for platform has nothing to do with everything I just said. Yeah, and thank you, Jim. I don't think today's show, you being anti-Microsoft. I said numerous times in today's show when Sony accuses Microsoft of dragging their feet and not willing to make concessions on Call of Duty until they absolutely have to. Yes, that's exactly what Microsoft should do. If I was Phil Spencer, if I was in Microsoft's shoes, I would do the same thing. I'm not going to give you concessions until I absolutely have to. We're spending $70 billion. Are you freaking kidding me? Personally, I like Sony as a company more than Microsoft. I just never liked Bill Gates, and that feeling stuck. What's good, Captain Steve? Is Lulu Cheng lying when she said the deal offered by Microsoft has better terms than what Sony would ever get from Activision? I don't know. That's not for her to decide. That's for Sony to decide. If Sony looks at the deal and determines, nope, no, this is a deal. This is a dagger. This is a dagger drenched in very tasty blood. Nope. If that's what they determine, then what she says doesn't matter. If you offered me a deal to buy my YouTube channel from me, and you thought this is an amazing deal, this is a better deal than he's going to get anywhere else, and I shoot it down, and I'm like, no, I don't think it's a good deal. I could have 1,000 reasons as to why I don't think it's a good deal. Online MVP dropping a 20 gifted bomb on the chat. Members, if you get a membership today, it's a good day to be a member because we're doing a double header horror game weekend with my wife. We'll be playing The Devil in Me tonight as well as tomorrow night. You don't want to miss it. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you got things turned on. Make sure you are in our members only Discord. Make sure you're doing it. You don't want to miss those streams tonight. We're going to have a good time. We're actually going to play that new DC game as well tonight. Online MVP, dude. Massive. You've been critical about everything that Xbox is, and you try to cover it by throwing bones to Xbox here and there. Bro, you're faking it. Make it stop. You're faking it to make. Stop. John, if there's one thing I know, it's that when someone assumes things about my character and my integrity, that's a problem with you as a person, not me. If you want to presume and assume that I'm being dishonest or I'm being fake, that's your own personal problem. I know who I am. I know the man that I am. I know my level of integrity and honesty. And I got news for you. Someone that typed what you just typed, I don't have any concerns about your judgment of me. Because to say that about a stranger, it just speaks volumes about you. It does. It just speaks volumes about you. Christopher Wright with a 20 bomb. Online MVP with a 20 bomb. They say shove that crap out of the chat. Shove it out of the chat. Taking us to 91. Wait, then we got to go to 111. 111. Oh my gosh. Christopher Wright with a 50 bomb. With a 50 bomb. They say get that judgmental crap out of the chat. Get it out of here. You want to come in and judge me? You want to call my integrity into question? My community's going to shove it out of the chat. That's what happens. Don't come at me with that nonsense. Don't come at me with your armchair judgment of my personhood, my integrity, my honesty. Take a frickin' walk. Ride the elevator of generosity in my chat right now. I hope I got the math right on that. I hope I got the math right on that. Is that right? We were at 71 and we got 90 gifteds. Yeah, 161. That's right. That's right. It's still going. I can't even read all the chat. I play on all platforms, PC mostly, but I'm all for competition at the end of the day. John, we can be friends if you stop trying to take swipes at me. You and me can be friends, homie. I have every rig, every system. I have a PC. Like, we can be friends. Put the dagger down for a second. Just because I'm opposed to the deal, because from where I sit it would be bad for competition, doesn't mean that we can't be friends. Doesn't mean that you can't hang out here. The devil's already in you. It's PlayStation. What kind of ideological religious lingo is that? What the F? The devil is already in you? It's PlayStation? What's the matter with you? It's a piece of plastic that I play video games on. It could be called the doo-doo box. I don't care what it's called. What does it matter? I play video games on it. It's a piece of plastic. And I have fun. And I have amazing experiences. And my wife's been playing Hogwarts Legacy on it. It's the devil. The devil's in your house, boy. Like, what the frick? What? Settle down. We know all about you, witch. You witch. The frick is wrong with you, bro? I'm stealing that? Doesn't it speak volumes me you've made fun of my name in your first statement? I made fun of your name after you called me a Sony pony. Like, what's it like to posture strength while being a weak coward? I don't know what that's like. I don't. Because I stick my chin all the way out. I do. I stick my chin all the way out, baby. Live. And in color. You called me a Sony pony, and I made fun of your last name. What are you doing on the internet? What are you doing here? You're too soft for the internet. You want to puff your chest out and throw around insults, and if it comes back around to you, well, that's a problem. That's a problem. I can't abide that. I'm going to insult this guy. I'm going to call his integrity into question, but he made fun of my last name. Grow the frick up. You child. Just grow up. This is the real world. I don't know where you typically hang out, but when you hang out here and you want to pop off, you might get slapped. That's just kind of how it works. You know, like anywhere else. Go to your local bar and just start throwing around insults. Just do it. See what happens. I can't believe I got punched. I only insulted the owner of the establishment as soon as I walked in the door. The frick. Soft like dough. Yo, online MVP with a 20 spot. You're soft like uncooked dough. You said you were going to play the devil inside me. It was a play on words. Oh, come on. Was that really a play on? That's actually kind of funny. That's actually kind of funny if it was a play on words with like the game that we were going to play. Okay. All right. He can stay and we'll let him stay for a little bit longer. We'll see how he behaves. I don't hate you. I love you. No daggers. I'm helping you stream by trolling. Okay. Lono, don't ever change. Love this. He might actually have been joking, because that's a really specific thing to say. You let the devil in? Come on. He might actually be the first person in history to be telling the truth with the, it was a joke, bro. He might actually be the first person that we've ever had say that's telling the truth. Get him a membership? He might be telling the truth. It was so out of left field. I was like, what do you mean I've let the devil inside? What? I did literally just say that during the member bomb. That is true. He might be telling the truth. A 5 spot from Lazaro. These Xboxes are the kind to defend marriage by saying they promised me eternity. Oh, come on, stop it. Stop it. Get very hard. You're flailing. Oh, come on. I'm in the trenches right now. Did we just become best friends? Listen to me. Anybody that's here right now, we've had a spike in viewership. So let me give you a quick summary. It's going to be tough. Before I do that, before I give you a quick summary, let me give you a membership count, because we are going for some pretty big member goals, and I want to honor the people who have really, really moved the needle today. They've moved the needle. 181 members. What is going on right now? If we get to 3,000, you get a Just Dance stream. We are at 2646. You're about 350 away from the Just Dance stream. You're going to have to get big today. You're going to need to help. You're going to need to help your friends in the chat right now. You can't rely totally on these big guys. Yo, Capono with a 515 with a 4-month resub. Welcome back. Okay. We've had a surge in viewership, so I owe you a recap. All right. My position is that both Microsoft and Sony are approaching this deal doing exactly what they should do. And that is, they're protecting their interests. Microsoft has been slow on concessions. They've been hesitant to offer significant concessions while telling the public they're doing really big concessions. And they should do that. Trying to get the public to be okay with the deal is a smart move. Waiting to do concessions until they absolutely have to is a smart move. I'm not faulting them for that, okay? That's what they should do. Sony is both against the deal, but also trying to squeeze concessions in case the deal goes through. Both can be true. You have been given, I believe, a false narrative and lots of misleading reporting on this particular situation, okay? If you look at a lot of the coverage, it's been, this deal's totally fine. Sony's out here lying, and Sony's out here trying to stop the deal, and I can't believe Jim Ryan said, I don't want a better deal or a new deal on Call of Duty. I want to block your merger. Yes, he's been unashamedly against the merger since the beginning, but they have also been attempting to squeeze concessions out of the deal because the deal might go through. And if the deal goes through, he has a duty to his company. He has a fiduciary duty to his shareholders to say, I need to protect our interests and our profit. And one of those big funnels of profit is Call of Duty. I've seen plenty of YouTubers that have nothing invested in this deal saying Sony is operating in bad faith. People that don't even have an Xbox and they only play PC and PS5. I don't care. That's not compelling. Sony's not operating in bad faith? Yeah, from the get-go, the gaming press has been saying things like Sony's hypocritical because of exclusives. You have been fed propaganda from moment one from the gaming press. They have one of my very first reaction videos that I've ever done was Yang Yeah and his coverage of it and his reading from the press, and I was just baffled by how slanted it was. I was like, I don't understand this. How could anybody with any modicum of intellect think that this is hypocritical because Sony has exclusives too? It's like, Sony's never been against the deal because of exclusives. That's dishonest framing. It's dishonest framing. What other companies shouldn't Microsoft be able to acquire in your opinion? Well, it's not about who they can and can't acquire. It's multifaceted controller sports. The size of the deal is concerning. Microsoft has a history of being willing to pay antitrust fines. Microsoft has a history of being like, hey, we don't want to pay people benefits, so we're going to miscategorize them. And when we get sued because we've miscategorized employees, we're going to make it a company-wide policy that all contractual employees are 18 months so we don't have to pay them benefits. And it's on record as one of the leading causes of problems with 343 and Halo Infinite. Not the only cause, one of the leading causes. And you're staring at a company like that. You're looking at a company with that history and you're saying, what's the big deal? Why shouldn't we let them consolidate $70 billion worth of the market? You just turn that blind eye. I don't care that Microsoft has a history of paying antitrust fines. That's fine. I don't care that they were miscategorizing employees and don't want to pay them benefits, and it's a company-wide policy now, 18-month contracts. I don't care about that. I don't care that 343 employees cited that contractual policy as one of the leading causes of problems with the company's ability to bring a game to market efficiently and in a way that doesn't suffer knowledge loss and proficiency loss. I don't care about any of that, man. I bleed green. Look at Microsoft with your eyes wide open. People want to sit here and act like, oh, Sony's this evil corporate overlord. What do you mean? They're all shrewd. They're all shrewd, and they're aggressive. That's how they got to where they are. You think Microsoft is just some kid trying to start a lemonade stand? Look, come on, give them a shot. What are you talking about? Microsoft's one of the biggest companies in the world. This is the thing. This is the narrative we've gotten for a year. Microsoft can do whatever they want, baby. Deep pockets. Big daddy, sugar daddy, Microsoft. And then when it comes to the Xbox Gaming division attempting to spend $70 billion, it's, oh, come on, give them a chance. Give them a chance. They're the underdog. Both things can't be true. One or the other. Kuda Papa with a $5 tip. Chat's Papa today. Welcome to the 181 new members. Morning Lono. I'm laughing at Sony. They destroyed all their credibility recently. Who did? How did Sony destroy their credibility? Outline that for me. What you talking about? Pot calling the kettle black. Xbox has their own third-party exclusives, but we don't make those a talking point. Listen, I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now. Anybody who is attempting to frame this about exclusives. That's a false framing. This is not about exclusives. I'm going to need you to say something negative about Sony to balance the scales. I don't have any news reports about them to point to anything specific, but do you honestly think Sony got to the size they are without being shrewd and aggressive? I just assume it. I just assume that they're shrewd and aggressive. Do you think Microsoft isn't shrewd and aggressive? Like, I just don't know where the doe-eyed sentimentality comes from. Like a little anime puppy, like, Microsoft. Like, what the frick, man? What the frick? Both companies, man, both are Leviathan, shrewd, aggressive, walk-on-people companies. Any company of that size has bodies in the closet. You'll notice something. You'll notice something. I've never once framed the argument around how good Sony is and around why Sony needs protected. I've not done that once. But you'll notice the people that frame the argument and they're in support of the deal and they're pro Xbox, they talk about Xbox as if they're some pure as the driven snow company that's just going to purify the market and make it better. Don't you see the difference? I'm against it at an economical consumer level. I don't care about Sony in the grand scheme. The market's bigger than Sony. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yes, this deal shouldn't go through because poor Sony. Poor, pure as the driven snow Sony. Nope. That's not a part of my position. It's not a part of my argumentation. You can go back and watch every single video I've made on this. That's never once been my framing of it. He was never okay with Sony buying Take-Two. Yeah, go back to my video. I have a live stream this week called Sony, How They Compete. That's the thumbnail. And I said in that video, if this turns into a buying war, and I think the Sony buying Take-Two rumor is bogus, but let's just imagine they tried to. I said in that video, I don't want them doing this. This isn't good for the market. That's not good for you and me, for the industry to silo up into big giant funnels. Morning, Lono. Hope you're good. Thank you, Cleo, for the $5 tip. Are you able to break down the issues with Microsoft grabbing up Activision? Call of Duty's the main concern? No, Call of Duty's not the main concern. It's one of the concerns, but it's not the main concern. A company with a history of being willing to pay antitrust fines, a company with a history of miscategorizing employees and making it a company-wide policy that everyone that's on a contract is on 18 months because we don't want to pay them benefits. A company, because of that endemic company-wide policy, affected the efficiency and the proficiency of 343 Industries to bring Halo to market, according to virtually every single person who was at the company is no longer there. That is why I don't want Microsoft to own a literal percentage point of the market, a slice of the pie. They don't have a history that gives me confidence in how they're going to act once they get this. Call of Duty? Who gives a frick about Call of Duty? You want to hand Microsoft that much power because you like them, not because of economic or consumer-based reasons. Nope. No, it's because you like them. That's why it's so bias-laden. Your position's based on an affinity. It's not based on deduction. It's not based on economic analysis. It's not based on I don't even know. It's not based on consumer argumentation. They've ignored regulatory concessions before, and they just pay the fines because no one can fight them. Do you see? You guys, people talk about Microsoft. They got deep pockets. They got deep pockets. You're right. They have deep pockets to the point that they just ignore regulatory concessions. They just pay the fine. Why? What are you going to do? What are you going to do to them? They're so big. All right. See you, John. Zubair had the perfect analogy. It's not buying a sports team, it's buying a league. The NBA has 30 teams that average $2.5 billion, so it's like buying the NBA. Thank you. You're doing the same thing that was 20 years ago? Thank you so much. You're the first person to explain this where it truly makes sense. Conglomeration and other anti-competitive behavior has hurt a lot. Food, medicine, media. Their deep pockets are why this is a concern. Like, just press pause for just a second. Just forget your allegiances, okay? Just forget your allegiances for just a second. I want you to think about the fact that Microsoft actually has the ability to write a $70 billion check. Who else is doing that? All your peacocking and chest pounding for Microsoft, stop doing that for just a second and think about the fact that you can do that. Yeah, baby. 70 billion. Who else can do that? Very few people. That's not a concern for you? That's not alarming? Have you ever watched the movie It's a Wonderful Life? Have you watched it? Potter buys up everything because he can. And look at what it does. It's terrible. That's the whole, that's the centrality to that movie is you've had a wonderful life, George. Look at all you've done. You've been a beacon of hope and light in a town that needs you. And you're like, it's fine. They can write a $70 billion check because they're strong and I love them. Stop for just a second. They're one of the only people that can do this. Do you think that's good? They have that kind of strength already, and you're like, yeah, here you go. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the concern. It seems similar to our operating system discussion yesterday. Well, okay, if you're... I don't know what you're trying to do, Russell. I feel like I made it very clear. I feel like I made it very, very clear. The history of consolidation is all, as far as I can tell, it's universally bad for the consumer. The tech consolidation within the cable television, TVs and movies, cell phones, and internet service providers has been terrible for us. Because what happens when they do that? Oh, it's so crazy. What are we always complaining about? What's that word? Lobbyists. Oh, that's the word, right? Yeah. The internet service providers get so big and their pockets are so deep that they can basically go to the government and say, yeah, look the other way. Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that. We don't want internet being a utility. We don't want to have to improve our infrastructure and like abide by utility 48-hour restrictions and needing to recover power and needing to recover water and needing to recover. We don't want that. How are they able to do that? They consolidated, deepened the wells of their reservoirs of money and influence, and they can go to the government and say, yeah. Not only do we not want to pay our federal taxes, but we really, really don't want you to make any changes to, how the internet's treated. And you're looking at Microsoft and you're like, well, I mean, what could they possibly do that would be bad? I don't know. I'm not fear-mongering and saying that Microsoft is the devil. I'm saying this level of consolidation, a check that big, should give you pause. Nobody's pausing and saying, let's really think about what this might do. What could happen? Ernest Jansen with a renewed membership and Broken Surprise with a membership. First of many, love the show. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Tell me how Microsoft has played dirty. Why is it always Microsoft that's the bad guy? I've said multiple times today, I don't care who it is. I wouldn't want Amazon to buy this. Amazon's got deep pockets. Google has deep pockets. I wouldn't want them to do this either. I think I'm in your position, Lono, yesterday, to be honest. I don't have much stake in video games like you were more complacent with operating systems. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, but okay, the problem with your analogy, Russell, is that there was not some vibrant market of operating systems and that vibrant market of competition and diversity, right? Oh, it was so good for us. That never existed. We have that right now. We have a pretty diverse, non-consolidated market in the gaming space. And coming to that market and trying to silo up a giant portion of it, no. That's how it started with cell phones. That's how it started with internet service providers. You come to a vibrant market. You come to a market where there's options and there's competition and the consumer has choice, and you silo, silo, silo. I have less options now. Well, the prices are going up. Where am I going to go? Nowhere. Sony doesn't care about gamers either. They just don't want the deal to go through. After Jim's last statement, their credibility for this deal is gone. You have to substantiate why their credibility is gone. It's multifaceted, Akuta Papa. They don't want the deal to go through. They've not been shy about that. That's not news. Why do you think that that's news? Well, up to now, I thought Jim Ryan was a swell guy and really wanted the deal to go through as long as they got some good concessions. No! They've been against the deal from moment one. They're on record months ago saying this deal should be blocked, and here's why. What he said was not news. It's being spun up as propagandistic, oh, can you believe this evil guy? Let me let you in on a little secret. Sony doesn't care about gamers, neither does Microsoft. They don't care about us. I'm not under some delusion that I think Jim Ryan likes me. He likes my money. Why? Because of his shareholders. Like, Microsoft doesn't like me. They like my money. Why? Because of their shareholders. They're all the same. You're just choosing one over the other. I see them for what they are. They are Leviathan-sized companies that have to be kept in check because they don't give a frick about us. They don't care about us. Painting it as if Microsoft cares about you and is going to do right by you and the consumer in the market. Where is there evidence of that? Where? Thank you, Broken Surprise, for gifting a membership. 182. You see, I can sit here straight-faced, eyes wide open. Both companies don't give a frick about me. But you, the people that are super in support of this deal and want to paint Sony as the devil or paint Sony as the bad guy, you have to substantiate why you think Microsoft cares about you and is pro-gamer. That's on you. The burden of proof is on you. I don't have to prove anything. All I got to do is say, these companies are motivated by profit, not by making sure that you're feeling good and happy. Microsoft also has a tendency to be loss leader, buy up the market, and then drive competition out of the market with low prices, causing businesses to close down and then drive up prices. That's so many businesses. That's so many businesses. That's Walmart. None of this is like, this is the problem. You think your allegiance to a company somehow has a purifying effect on them. So, like, if you really like McDonald's, do you think that makes them like a really pure company? You really like Walmart. You think that somehow makes them like a pure company, or Target, or whoever? I really like Disney. Okay. You think Disney... You think Disney and Universal and Nestle, you think all these giant corporations are somehow purified by your allegiance? They're businesses that exist for one sole purpose: profit. Just because you like Xbox, just because you like Microsoft, doesn't mean they're in some special category, especially given their history. It's not as simple as companies only care about money. It's that combined with them having literally no other option but for it to be their only care, they put themselves in a situation where that will always be the case if they want to remain with jobs as a business. It's like the inverse of there is no ethical consumption, almost like my consumption must be ethical so my companies are good. Right. Dylan with 8 months. Keep the momentum going, man. Happy with how much you've grown in this time. Thank you. A Sony fanboy, but I have no stake in Activision, I guess. I mean, Russell, I'm not trying to bring somebody to the table and say, hey, you should really be angry about this or care about this. Today's entire show's POV has been, you have gotten terrible, abysmal, dishonest reporting on this subject because people like Xbox, and that's all they need to essentially lie to the public about what's been going on, to misrepresent Sony or Jim Ryan, and their little minions come out in force. The minute I try to say anything that's like, that's not what Jim Ryan said, let's actually look at the document, look at what happens. I get called a Sony pony, I get called anti-Xbox, I get called an Xbox hater. That's the behavior of a propagandized populace. That is not the behavior of thinking persons. You've been propagandized because it's like, well, I believe what these guys said, and if you say something contrary, you're a dirty word. It's like a cult, baby. You're acting like a cult member. Listen, think about what you're doing. You're trying to silence voices that are saying something contrary to what you've already believed or what you've already been told. That is incredibly scary. All you got to do is watch a couple slanted YouTubers, read a couple slanted tweets in a blog, and you're ready, all out in force, to insult somebody who's literally just reading the documents to you. That's all I did this morning. I was like, this is what the document said. This is what Sony said. This is what Jim Ryan said. This is the history of it. This is the things that have transpired. That's all I've said. I never said Sony's right and Microsoft's wrong. I didn't do that. I didn't couch it in that way. I said they're both doing the same thing. They're both vying for their business interests. That's completely different coverage than, well, I'm in support of the deal, so Jim Ryan is pathetic, and Jim Ryan is crying. Jim Ryan is desperate. The irony is that their coverage is desperate. Their coverage is pathetic. That's the irony. It's like they sense it. They sense how pathetic they're being, how desperate they are for this deal to go through, so they project that onto him. Like, yeah, he's the one that's desperate and scared about this deal. No, you're scared about this deal not going through because you quite literally make money covering this ecosystem, and it's better for you if the deal goes through financially. You benefit from the deal going through. You suspect. You're arguing the lowest hanging fruit, Lono. Again, it's people that have no investment in Xbox that believe this deal should go through. Stop arguing straw men. I'm not arguing straw men. Straw man fallacy is when you prop up a really bad argument and you quote it to make your argument stronger. I've not needed to do that. All I've done today, if you want to summarize my 30-minute show open as a straw man, I would like you to... I would like you to rethink your strategy of engaging with me. Yong's a big Sony guy. How is he desperate? Yong's coverage of this was bad. I reacted to it. I called him out for his logical inconsistencies. That's not a straw man. Go watch my reaction. I reacted to Yong's coverage of this when he agreed with Destin, of all people, that Sony was being hypocritical, and I showed them how that's logically inconsistent and a poor framing of the subject. If you find my argumentation to not be compelling and you think it's a straw man, then substantiate your claims. Luke Stevens has no invested interest in Xbox. Are you familiar with the fallacy of the expert or the fallacy of the professional? That's what you're attempting to do. You're attempting to claim, well, I can find voices that have no staked interest in Xbox. And that makes their coverage, oh yeah, that's their coverage is better or their coverage is true. Like, genetic fallacy It's like the inverse of a genetic fallacy. Like, what are you saying? Just because they, in your estimation, they don't have a bias? And again, you're playing the fallacious, erroneous argumentation strategy of a batting cage. So you threw out Yang, and I said, I engage with Yang's video, and I blasted him and everybody else for their illogical and bad framing. And instead of responding to that, since you accuse me of straw man, what do? You just throw out somebody else. Your argumentation is erroneous. It's fallacious. You accuse me of something, and when you can't substantiate it, what do? You just throw out another name. Think about what you just did, Mike. You just accused me of arguing against straw men, which isn't true. And when I ask you to substantiate it, you bring up Yang. And I'm like, I engaged with Yang's video. I argued from logic and reason. I didn't straw man him. I reacted to the words that he said. I reacted to Destin's brilliant tweet. That's not straw manning. And when I knock that down, you just throw out some other content creator name. A big thing you keep hammering on is Xbox fanboys. Xbox fanboys? What do you mean Xbox fanboys? I quoted what's her name? I quoted Lulu today, who is the EVP of corporate affairs and the CCO of Activision Blizzard. She's an Xbox fanboy. I quoted Windows Central and Jez Corden today, citing bad coverage and bad framing and slant and bias. That you're describing him as an Xbox fanboy? I don't understand. I engage with people that were framing this and talking about this in ways that it gets repeated ad nauseum. I wondered where the Sony is protecting the status quo. I wondered where that phrase came from. I was like, why do people keep saying that? Lo and behold, it was right there in ink in the Windows Central article that I quoted this morning. Gee, it's almost like people go where they're going to get their confirmation bias and then just run with the talking points. Argue the fact that even with this deal, Xbox would still be in third place. How is that anti-competitive? Okay. So, when is Doc Dark going to come back on? I'm not sure. So in your mind, when would love to see Lono debate Destin, I don't debate people with zero reporting integrity and dishonesty. No, I would not sully my content with him or grace his show without an apology for what he did in 2020. If they're in third place after the check clears, don't you think that potentially 10 years later, dramatic things could happen? That's the point, isn't it? You're arguing against something nobody ever claimed. Listen to your argumentation. Listen to the premise and the presumption, like, baked into your question. Well, clearly you think once they buy the company, they're not going to be in third place anymore. No, nobody ever said that. Nobody ever said they're going to buy their way out of third place. People talked about it being disruptive. People talked about it being bad for their profit line. People talked about it being bad for certain markets. Cloud, mobile, console, PC, subscription services. There's a litany of things that this touches. So no one ever said like, oh, this deal shouldn't go through because then Microsoft suddenly won't be in third place. Nobody ever said that. Dex says, question, Lono, do you think anyone other than yourself is covering this properly? I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to sit here and have like a wave of the hand and act like I don't have that level of hubris, brother. I don't have that level of hubris and ego to think like, well, I'm clearly the only one covering this right. That's delusional. And I don't think that. The primary voices that I'm seeing, the articles I'm seeing referenced, and the voices that I'm seeing quoted are completely bumbling this. Their coverage of it has been abysmal. and their talking points and their rhetoric gets repeated in my chat all of the time. Eugene says Axios is covering it well. So Eugene is saying there's somebody that's also covering it well. I don't know who else is covering this. I don't have that kind of time. So I'm not going to wave that hand and be like, I'm the only one covering this. Lono, you've missed the critical distinction. I've depicted myself as the Chad and you as the Soy Jack. I'm not sure what that even means. You're speaking in like, I don't know, is that like Reddit speak? What did Destin do in 2020? He and the rest of the gaming press failed to even hit the bare minimum of reporting integrity and honesty in a situation that concerned me. They all failed to have even an ounce of journalistic integrity. So I find the gaming press and everybody involved in 2020 and everybody now, I find them to be lacking in honesty and integrity. And I don't trust them. And I think there's reasons to not trust them. And their framing of things now is just more evidence of that. It's just more evidence of that. Not a single person back then had any journalistic integrity. Preacher says, you want some hard truth. The reason Lono has 26,000 subs instead of 60,000 subs right now is his commitment to accuracy instead of leaning into fandom or picking sides. I mean, it'd be really easy to grow a channel doing that. Especially with my fire and my grit and my, like, preacher-style oratory delivery. It'd be real easy to just bang on a fanboy drum, and I don't do that. Do you know how many people we've walked out the door who were so hardcore for Sony that we had to make them leave because they were mean and unkind? Like, I'm clearly not attempting to, like, cull the herd and only have a Sony channel. That would be stupid. I don't believe in picking sides. Also, hashtag Team Dark Roast. Lono's looking at this from a business perspective. Some of you are looking at the acquisition from a console war perspective. I genuinely think, Big Lido, I think that's a good summary of why we end up passing in the night. I do. I think we end up passing in the night with people because it's just like they're thinking of it in the realm of, I'm pro Xbox, therefore I should be pro this deal. And I'm thinking, I'm not pro Xbox or Sony. I'm pro consumer. I'm pro market. And this all sounds awful. My boy Jeff B Gaming got banned because of that. Yeah, Jeff is an example, not to like dig up old dirty laundry, but like that's an example of somebody who was so disruptive and so pro Sony and just wouldn't heed warnings. We had to ban him. He's not the only one, by the way. There's been 4 or 5 people we've had to ban on the Sony side, and there's been a little bit more. I think there's been about 6 or 7 people we've had to ban on the Xbox side. Too disruptive, too axe grindy, just bad for the chat. Can you address the fact that Sony is implying Microsoft might put bugs in COD on purpose? Another false summary. That's not true. You are accepting propaganda and simply repeating it. If you read the document, that isn't what Sony said. That is a lie. It's painful to have to consistently be like, here comes another bunch of weeds and tall grass of propaganda. I gotta get out the machete and just cut it down. No, they didn't say that. They spoke specifically to the parity promise, and they said the parity promise was not legally enforceable and it was vague and would leave the door open for Microsoft to do that. They didn't say, well, Microsoft's going to put bugs in our version of Call of Duty. You read the doc? Read it again. I read the doc that's in there. Microsoft's proposal does not offer a clear commitment to parity that is legally hard-edged and enforceable, despite its repeated public utterances to the contrary. Do you see what they're getting at? They're not saying, you're going to put bugs in our game. They're saying, your commitment, it's not enforceable. It's not legally hard-edged. Under its proposal, Microsoft is obligated to use redacted parity between PlayStation and Xbox and their respective Microsoft Game Studios services. This is a vague and weak commitment that does not give SIE the assurance that Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation on terms that would maintain PlayStation's competitiveness. Microsoft's proposal allows to a wide scope for Microsoft to deviate from its weak commitment. That's not... They're going to put bugs in Call of Duty. Do you hear the nuance? Do you hear the depth and the scope and the legitimate concern of like, this is vague. Why would they make it vague? Like, why would they make it vague? That's a fair question. You're promising parity in a way that can't be enforced. So, what? Microsoft, listen, one of the main takeaways from the document, and you're not going to get this. You're not going to get this from any of the pro Xbox guys. One of the things that Sony really drilled down on is behavioral commitments are not good enough in how dynamic the industry is. They even said a licensure commitment under like a trustee overlooking it isn't really enforceable. Everything's always moving so fast. They're not at all saying, yeah, you're literally stating things that are false. They're not in the document, but you've been propagandized. It needs to be a wide scope because now that they own Call of Duty, well, if they own Call of Duty, they can actually take advantage of what's in the console, DX12, RDNA 2 features that is not on the PS5. Oh, here we go again. Not going down that train with you. You were proven wrong on those claims. Why didn't Microsoft do that with the Bungie deal when Sony bought it? That's my point. Them saying that is an insult. See how you're framing things? You're framing things like, well, Sony insulted Microsoft because, they didn't do that with Bungie. On page 7, they list strategies that Microsoft could employ to hurt PlayStation. Right. And Reese's, that's in light of the vague terms of parity. So yes, they're outlining potential things that could happen. That's not the same as saying Microsoft's going to put bugs in Call of Duty. They're saying, under the vague terms, these are all the potential things that could happen. Taking a legal, well-written document and summarizing it in the way that some of you do, you're allowing false framing and propaganda to infect your brain. They're like, listen, this is vague. This isn't enforceable. They could do this. Exactly. It's a hypothetical meant to illustrate the problem. Like, with this vagueness, with this flexibility, these are some of the things that they could do. Miyako Best Girl says, that's how you do this. It's how a lawyer speaks. Right. You're coming at it from this, like, sort of, oh yeah, well, this YouTuber that I watched said this, or this article that I watched said this. Vague and unenforceable carry legal meaning. That's a lawyer. Zubair's a lawyer. Sony can hold both things in their hand. They can be against the deal, and they can also attempt to squeeze as many concessions as they can out of the deal. Both are true. Everyone that disagrees with you isn't being brainwashed. I didn't say brainwashed. It's insulting to me. Just like when you say it's insulting for you to mischaracterize you. Mike, when you make claims about the document that are using propagandistic terminology, what else am I supposed to say? It's an insult to Microsoft. That's propaganda. That's not a fact. That's not true. That's ideologically driven. You're insulting Microsoft. What are you even talking about? Oh, they said this. They said that they were going to put bugs in Call of Duty. They didn't say that. That's propaganda. That's false. If you don't want to be accused of being propagandized, then don't spread propaganda. It's real simple. Deal in facts only. I just gotta say it. Are we sure Lono's a lawyer? What lawyer has enough time to be here all the time and make all these tugboat jokes? Lawyers are busy, aren't they? Oh, Zubair. I was like, me? But he said it and it's on the papers. But you think you're smarter than everyone. I don't think I'm smarter than everyone. What he said isn't true. Like, that's more like, do you want proof that you've been propagandized when you just continue to believe a lie even after it's been proven a lie? They said that Microsoft's going to put bugs in Call of Duty. That's not what they said. What they said was the parity concessions are vague and it would allow for these lists of things. Those two statements are not the same. One is a lie and one is facts-based. You're choosing to believe the lie. I don't think I'm smarter than everyone, but my gosh, it's not hard to read the document and see that framing is false. If you lack the basic reading comprehension and intelligence to read a 22-page document and see the difference between the claim that Sony said that Microsoft's going to put bugs in Call of Duty, and you read the document and it's not there, and yet you continue to believe that, that's a you problem. That's not on me. You don't put that in that if you don't think they would do that. Projection and not in the document. You're just projecting that on there. So again, you're fabricating a narrative, not based on facts, not based on what's in the document. Think about what you said. You're justifying your lie with your opinion. That is fragile. My gosh, that's fragile. Sony said that Microsoft's going to put bugs in Call of Duty. They didn't say that. They listed hypotheticals because of the parity vagueness. Yeah, but they wouldn't put that in there unless they thought that they were going to do it. Therefore, they said that they're going to do it. What? What are you talking about? Sony is implying that Xbox could do that, and that is putting it through in that thought into people's heads. The claim was Sony implied Microsoft could put bugs in Call of Duty. That's 100% accurate. Claiming it's propaganda is factually incorrect. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. I wish I could click on names like on the old platform. Can you address the fact that Sony is implying Microsoft might put bugs in Call of Duty on purpose? But again, that's not, the document says they could. They're not saying that they might. Well, I guess they are saying that there might. But again, there's a difference between could and might. There's a difference between could and might. It's about the possibility, not saying that they will or not saying that they might. And then saying, oh, they didn't ask the same question of the Bungie deal. That's insulting to Sony. That's a propagandistic view of it. If you just look at the phrasing, it's they could do this. And when you change that one word, that's propaganda. They might do this. Nope. That's not what it says. Like, words are incredibly important. If I let a dog in my backyard, it could dig a hole. If I let a dog in my backyard, it might dig a hole. They're different words. One implies likelihood. One implies intention. The other is, it's just a possibility. I'm not defending the other stuff. The original comment was accurate. It's not accurate, though. Like, if you're going to say it could, and then you go to, oh, they might, that's spin. Sony's implying that Xbox could do that, and it's putting the thought into people's heads. By the way, this comment has my real name. I don't hide my name. It's Eamon Burns. Do I know? Wait, do I know you? Should I know you? Or are you just saying you're not using like an alt or something? I don't understand. Have we met in real life or something? I don't understand why you're drawing attention to that. I don't recognize you in the picture. A new statement from Sony says that Microsoft's current Call of Duty offer will irreparably harm competition, and says that Microsoft has requested redactions of the public filing of the deal it offered to PlayStation. You can stare at the redactions and wonder about them yourself. When was that tweeted? Today at 10 in the morning. Are we playing word semantics now? You betcha we are. That's what spin is. If you go to somebody and they don't directly quote the document and they give you like a summary, and then you go to the document and that summary doesn't line up, look at all the YouTube videos and all the tweets and all the articles. Go look at them. Nobody's saying Sony expressed concern about the vagueness of the parity promises from Microsoft, indicating that it would leave room for all sorts of possibilities. Microsoft could do this or Microsoft could do that. No. That's not the reporting you got. The reporting you got is, yeah, Sony's accusing Microsoft of giving them an inferior version of Call of Duty if the deal goes through. I've sat in this chair. I had to hear that all week from people coming in and saying it. What I think Sony's real goal is, throughout these projections, the whole PlayStation is first-class platform, implying Xbox isn't. I see Sony's angle. I mean, Sony's angle is extremely easy to see. They want as many concessions as possible, because in the event the deal goes through, they're ensuring that the harm to them is mitigated. I think that's fine. I think your POV on that the Harry Potter video description is fine. Like, I just want you to think about something for just a second. Sony is being vilified. Sony is literally being vilified for protecting their business interests. Like, I just want you to think about that for just a second. Like, remove the names and the console colors from the equation. You have a company that's trying to do a major acquisition, and you have another company saying this could hurt us in a litany of ways. And you're like, how dare you stand in the way of this acquisition? You shouldn't care about your profits more than this deal. What? Like think about that for just a second. Like, you're vilifying a company for doing the thing that they're supposed to do. It just doesn't make any sense. The reason I watch this channel is because of the balanced coverage. I appreciate that. That's all I've ever striven for. Is that a word? That's all I've ever strived for. So it's illegal to compete versus PlayStation. So Space Dovahkiin, you have a habit of doing that. That is a false summary loaded question. No one says it's illegal to compete versus PlayStation. If your summary of what I just said is that, you're either willfully trying to misrepresent what I've said, or you can't hang with me, brother. You can't hang with me. I'm lapping you on the Mario Kart course, and you're like, hey. So it's illegal to compete with PlayStation? What? No. I'm driving 90 miles an hour down the highway, and you're on like a tricycle. Oh, I can't keep up. Are you trying to say that it's illegal to compete with PlayStation? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that vilifying Sony for protecting their business interests doesn't make any sense. It's illogical. Think about the ideal that people are arguing against. They're arguing against an ideal that Sony wouldn't get in the way. Sony's just supposed to not get in the way. That's what you'd prefer. That's stupid. That's quite literally stupid. Why would they do that? Why they would just get out of the way and let the deal go through? Just got here recap. Yes, Lone Wolf, I saw what you put in chat. I quoted it. I haven't gone and looked at it. There's a new statement from Sony saying that Microsoft's current Call of Duty offer will irreparably harm competition, and says it was Microsoft that requested the redactions of the public filing of the deal. Gee, I wonder why. That's a mystery, right? Microsoft's telling you, we're offering them a great deal. You got Lulu Cheng out in the public. She's telling you, oh, we're offering Sony a better deal than they would have ever gotten with us. Hey, can you guys make sure and redact that so the public can't see it? Huh. Sony didn't request for it to be redacted. Microsoft did. Man. It's a real noodle scratcher. That's a real noodle scratcher. Why on earth would the company that's telling you the deal's great, why would they request the deal to be redacted so the public can't see it? I just, I can't think of a reason. It eludes me. You know? If the deal's so good, let us see it. 20 minutes ago, we had 2 coffee orders. 20 minutes ago, we had 2 coffee orders. Night Train got a triple threat, and he got the $5 off using code March Madness, and then a bag of the Frickmas blend to Casual Grinder. Thank you so much. Here's the thing. Does that mean if the deal doesn't go through, Sony is going to stop the year exclusives for COD then? Because if not, it'd be hypocritical, wouldn't it? I'm not sure what you mean. As far as like paying for exclusive deals? Like timed exclusivity? So, again, that's a false equivalency, Windsor. That's a false equivalency. Paying for like an extra map or a gun. I don't know when they recently did this. When's the last time that PlayStation did this with Call of Duty? I can't remember. Let's say they do that. Let's say, oh yeah, a deal doesn't go through and Sony offers Activision money for a timed exclusivity deal on like a gun and a map. Well, that's hypocritical. Sony doing that isn't the same as owning the property and damaging the property. It's, oh yeah, it's worse over there. Because once you give, there's a difference between paying, because Activision could refuse those monies. You understand that, right? Sony would be paying Activision for that exclusivity. They don't own the property. They can't control, like, Sony can't say, hey, Activision, can we give you a crispy million to make the game run like crap on the Xbox? Don't you see? That's a false equivalency. If Xbox owns Call of Duty, they can determine where it goes and how it goes, because they would own it. There's a scale difference, but Sony is just as guilty of trying to taking every legal advantage they can get. Oh, for sure. For sure. What I'm saying is, and listen, I'm on record. I am on record. I don't like paying for exclusivity like that. I have an entire video about Hogwarts Legacy where I said, I don't like this. I feel like this is a bygone era and I wish Sony would stop doing it. So I'm against paying for, what do we get in Hogwarts? We get a mission and we get a potion and something else for like an entire year. And I was against that. I have an entire show where I'm against that. I'm consistent in this, but that's not the equivalency of buying a property and then having the power to give a bad version or a diminished version or a version that's not supported with as many patches on another platform. Those aren't equivalent. I don't like either one, by the way. I don't like either one. I don't want Sony doing that to Call of Duty. I've been against that for a long time. But that's not the same as owning the property and being able to harm your competitor with that ownership. Don't you see the difference? When Microsoft or Sony approaches a third-party developer with timed exclusivity offers, the third-party developer can say, no, we don't want to do that. Why? Because they own it. They're the ones in control. If you get upset, and this is where I'm going to agree with Eugene here, when I made that stream and I said I didn't like that they were doing that with Hogwarts, Eugene said, it's on WB. WB could have said no. They had the final say. They own the property. So if you don't like that happening to Call of Duty, you can call PlayStation a hypocrite all you want. Activision's the one that accepted the money, which, keep that in mind as Activision CCO is out here publicly criticizing PlayStation. Activision had no problem going into these deals and making all this money from PlayStation. Oh yeah, baby, this is great. But the minute they want this acquisition to go through, Sony's they're being jerks. Like, absolutely the same. If you think me going to a company and attempting to pay for timed exclusivity is equal to owning the property and having complete autonomy over the property, you don't understand what the word equivalency means. They're not equivalent. We're thinking Microsoft might give someone a bad version. We have games on Xbox versus Microsoft where this has happened before in gaming. And see, this is when it gets tiring because you're repeating points that I've never made. It just feels like I honestly feel like that at this point you're being dishonest. I never said we're thinking that Microsoft might give someone a bad version. You're saying that. You're propagating that falsehood. Sony's issue is with the vagueness of the parody. And they've said, listen, this vagueness and parody leaves us open to all these possibilities. Why do you think Sony's doing that? Take a guess. Because if Sony can establish that as a problem with the deal, the regulators can push for concessions that are more specific, and that benefits Sony. Sony is protecting their interests. They're not painting Microsoft as the boogeyman. They're not saying Microsoft is evil. They're saying the vagueness here is potentially very bad for us. And if the regulatory bodies agree, do you want to know what's going to happen? Microsoft will have to make concessions. Don't you see? They're playing chess. When Sony says, yeah, but what about this? And you're like, they're being unreasonable. They're desperate. They're crying. Nope. You don't see what's going on. They're playing chess. They're moving a piece out, and then Microsoft has to respond. The only reason you think it's insulting or desperate, it's desperate or they're insulting them. The reason you think that is because that's what these Xbox guys are out here saying. It's pathetic. No, your coverage is pathetic. It's a chess game. If Sony continues to push and say, hey, this is too vague, this opens us up to problems, this opens us up to problems, guess what? If the regulatory bodies are convinced by that argumentation, Microsoft has to concede and buckle those things down. There's literally a parity clause in every contract. LOL. I can't make it any more clear than that. that the people that want to paint this as desperation or crying or pathetic, they are literally they're either too ignorant to understand what's going on, or they're smart enough to know what's going on, and they're feeding you a line of bull. It's already in the contracts. Go look right now on multi-plat games. That doesn't mean it's in the contract every time, Mike. Mike, you're not listening. You're not listening. Microsoft offered them a deal. And the deal contains vagueness about parity, and Sony's drilling down on it and saying, why are you being vague about parity? And they just published the documents, and the offer from Microsoft, at Microsoft's request, much of it's been redacted, so you can't see. So again, why would Microsoft redact all that stuff? And why would Sony be saying, there's too much vagueness here. We don't have any guarantees. Are these the same contracts that Microsoft is redacting? Yeah, we can't even get a clear look at the deal, but all we know is that Sony's response is, there's vagueness here, and that's bad for us. But you want to paint it as an insult or desperation or pathetic. Those are all emotionally charged words, which is why I call it propaganda. That's propaganda. That's not facts-based. Sony's being vague about putting bugs in a game where that has never happened in the past. I gave an example of Minecraft, one of the biggest franchises in the world, running better on the PS5. But it doesn't count because that's not what they're doing right now, JC. Just because Microsoft's doing that with Minecraft doesn't mean this is enforceable. Like, I'm going to say this one last time and then I'm done with some of you because you don't listen. You think you're going to wear me out and exhaust me. And it's just frustrating because I don't think you argue in good faith. I think you plug your ears and you disrupt my stream and it's annoying. Your either willful ignorance or endemic ignorance or lack of intelligence is so exhausting. They quite literally said the parity in the contract is not legally enforceable. That's their issue. It's not legally hard-edged and enforceable. But what about Minecraft? You're not listening. You're plugging your ears. You're dealing in propaganda. Well, what about Minecraft? That's propaganda. That's insulting. That's propaganda. Oh, they're pathetic. That's propaganda. They're crying. That's propaganda. This isn't legally enforceable. This leaves us open to potential problems in the future. We need that fixed. It's that simple. And if you can't look at that and see that that's just Sony protecting their business interests, then I can't help you. I can't. Can't help you. That is as clear as crystal. That's as clear as crystal. I don't think it gets any clearer than that. That Sony's coming to the table. They're doing the exact same thing that Microsoft is doing. They're taking every legal angle. They're taking every opportunity to say, we want to protect our business interests. I'm not even going to sit here and say, oh, it's redacted because Microsoft's up to no good, Mike. We can't come to the conclusion that it's a good deal if it's redacted. Right? Sony have their deals redacted too. That tells me everything I need to know. Then you just can see, like, do you see that bias? Like, that tells me everything I need to know. Yeah, Sony's got redacted contracts. Well, then you just confirmed that Microsoft likely has these contracts redacted because they don't want the public to see them. The burden of proof is on Microsoft. That's the point that you keep missing in this. That's the point that you keep missing in this. The burden of proof is on Microsoft. Microsoft's coming to me and saying, we offered them a great deal. Sony's saying, it's not a great deal. There's vagueness on parity. There's all kind of assurances in here that open us up to potential problems. And Microsoft's, it's a fine deal. Redact that. We don't want the public to see it. The burden of proof's on you, Microsoft. I'm not compelled. I'm not compelled by a redacted contract. If you're trying to convince me that this deal is a better deal, then convince me. Convince me. I'm telling you that's not strange. I didn't say it was strange. I didn't say it was strange. I said that the burden of proof is on Microsoft. If Microsoft's going to come out into the public and say, hey, we're giving them a great deal, we don't know what the problem is. I don't understand. This is a good deal. Okay, prove it. Let the public see the deal. Sony is literally saying, listen, unredact it. Unredact it. Let the public see. That communicates volumes. That communicates volumes. Sony's like, we don't want this deal redacted. We want the public to see it. That communicates so much. Nah, the deal's not any good. There's vagueness, parody. It could hurt us. And Microsoft's like, it's a great deal, but we don't want the public to see it. Yo, Drufus says, if Microsoft can't get ABK, I think they'll gobble up other studios. Either way, they're going to be buying someone. Well, I mean, I think I'd rather have Activision Blizzard busted up, personally. It should be quite obvious they don't need to prove. Just saying it has gotten the effect that they wanted. They don't want to convince consumers, though. 99% of consumers are just going with the flow of what happens either way. They aren't going to rise up for change and clarity. I don't disagree that Sony is protecting their interests. Their interest is to kill the deal, so I judge any complaint in light of that. Okay, you just admitted bias. You're going to judge all their complaints in light of them wanting to kill the deal, so you're in support of the deal. That's a bias. That affects your judgment. Don't you see the problem with that? The minute you admit, like, oh, I'm in support of the deal, so if they're going to try and kill the deal, yeah, I'm going to view everything in light of that. What the, huh? Them protecting their interest is to kill the deal. If they can't get that, they want as many concessions as they can get. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're humming along with your business and things are going really, really good for you, the last thing you want is for the market to get disrupted and to hurt your bottom line. So yeah, them being against the deal is them protecting their interests. You being in support of the deal is a bias. That's you choosing a side. Just like I'm against the deal. I'm against the deal. I don't think the deal should go through. I think it's bad for consumers. I think it's bad for the market when it silos up. Well, why do you think that? Are you an Xbox hater? No, I'm a student of history. Look at the history. This has never been good for us. When has this ever been good for us? The whole deal and everything surrounding it is biased. I don't think there's a single point of unbiased view in existence of the deal. Right, but Solemn, I can set my bias aside and say, well, I'm against the deal, but I set my bias aside and I say, Microsoft's not doing anything wrong. Sony's not doing anything wrong. Don't you see the difference? The people who are in support of the deal, they're constantly claiming that Sony's lying, Sony's pathetic, Sony's desperate, Sony's being misleading, Sony's insulting Microsoft. Don't you see the difference? They're allowing their bias to dictate how they talk about the deal itself, how they talk about Sony. I've not done that once. I've not said, yeah, Microsoft's out here being jerks and trying to hurt the market, and they're evil, and they're insulting Sony, and they're being dishonest. I've not done any of that. I've said Microsoft has been slow to make concessions, and they should be slow to make concessions. That's good business. Microsoft's approaching this with shrewdness and aggressiveness. That's what they should do. I'm able to literally set my bias aside and say, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, Microsoft's doing wrong and it's bad. No, they're doing exactly what they should do. They have a duty to the deal, to their shareholders, to their profit. Like, Microsoft's doing exactly what they should do. Sony protecting their business equals fine. Microsoft giving 10-year contracts out like candy is bad for consumers. I didn't say that. See, it's like you can't see it. Don't you see how awful you are at argumentation? Like, I say all that about setting my bias aside and talking about Microsoft, and that's your summary. Like I said, you're on a tricycle, and I'm in a NASCAR. Like, we're not even on the same wavelength of speed. It's like, Microsoft giving 10-year contracts out like candy. That's bad for consumers? You're just reframing the argument underneath the presumption that Microsoft handing out 10-year contracts is automatically good. Why is that automatically good? That's not a substantiated premise. You got to substantiate that. Are the contracts good for you? Are they good for the consumer? Are they good for the market? Are they going to foster an environment of competition and frugality for the consumer? Are they going to foster an environment of profit margins for independent developers, third-party developers, everybody that's attached to the market? We don't know that. Don't you see what you're doing? It's like you can't even see it. It's like I say all that about setting my bias aside, and I say, listen, man, both companies are approaching this, protecting their interests, and that's how you frame it. Oh, I get it now. JC and Space Dovahkiin and Mike 2K, you all do this, and it's infuriating. You do this false summary passivity nonsense. Oh, okay, Lono, so it's okay for Sony. But if Microsoft does this, they're the devil. I never said that. I never said that. You're misrepresenting me. You're misrepresenting everything I've said. You guys have all three done it numerous times today. It's good for people that haven't been able to access COD. To me, that's good. Oh. That's unidimensional, though. That's unidimensional. So if Microsoft comes into the market and says, hey, we're going to buy Call of Duty and we're going to put it on Nintendo. And you say, that's all I need to know. That's good. More people get COD. Awesome. First and foremost, you have to look at the history of Call of Duty on the Nintendo market, the history of the hardware of the Nintendo Switch, and see that they've not been sitting over there dying for Call of Duty. They've actually not been traditionally very economically supportive of Call of Duty on the Nintendo system. Okay? So if you look at that history, even that premise is weak, right? So that's just a unidimensional, oh yeah, more people can get access to Call of Duty. So if you think about it in those terms, what, you're just going to ignore the rest of the deal and what it could do to the market, what it could do to other gamers, other users, other platforms. Oh, well, more people can play it now. Forget about poor people, bro. We don't care about them. See what I'm saying? What are you even typing? Who said anything about poor people? With respect, poor people don't have anything to do with an industry that is leisure. It's luxury. Yeah, man, forget about poor people. Poor people don't factor into a luxury market. That's just emotionally driven nonsense. That's nonsense. Can you believe it? Can you believe Lamborghinis? They don't make a car affordable to the poor? It's unbelievable. They just don't care about the poor. No, it's a luxury market. Why are you bringing up poor people? I'm asking Space Dovahkiin. He said it. What do you mean, why am I bringing up poor people? He said it. It's a luxury market. Poor people don't factor in a luxury market. That's not me being unkind. They don't factor in. Like, we should care for the poor and help them and establish systems that empower them and don't incentivize failure and prop them up and allow them upward mobility in society. That doesn't have anything to do with a luxury market. Oh, not me. I was going to say JC. I was like, I didn't bring it up. It's a disgusting argument. I'm pretty sure people that can't make their bills aren't concerned about anything gaming. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're talking about a poor person that's choosing between gas in their car and their grocery bill, they don't give a frick about what we're talking about today. They don't care about the inflation of game prices and consolidation of companies and profit margins of Microsoft. That's not their concern. The amount of Camaros I saw when I was growing up in the hood. Oh, shut up. Why is PlayStation so scared of Xbox? That's propagandistic framing. You're watching too many Xbox YouTubers. Why are they so scared of Xbox? They're not scared of Xbox. That's propagandistic. That doesn't communicate anything other than projection and presumption that a multi-billion-dollar corporation is scared of another one. That's just not true. But to clarify, it's in Sony's interest to kill the deal, so their complaints are likely to be made to that end. Right, and Reese, that makes it amoral. That makes it's literally, there's no morality, there's no ethics here. It's them pursuing their business interests. But you're also forgetting, Reese, again, I still think that's too reductionist. It's not just, we want to kill the deal, so our complaints are to bring about the death of the deal. Their complaints are multifaceted. They're also attempting to get concessions in the event the deal goes through. It's a multifaceted effort. It's like, I can't think of an analogy. It's like if you wear a tank top to the beach, you might wear it because you think you look good, but you also wear it because you want to work on your tan. It's multifaceted. They're making complaints with the goal of the deal dying, but they're also making complaints that if this deal goes through, we want to get as many concessions as we can. We want as many guarantees that the ecosystem and the revenue streams that we're currently enjoying aren't disrupted. If you go read Jez Corden, he'll tell you, oh, Sony's defending the status quo. That's propaganda. That's not what they're doing. A company defending its revenue streams and profits is their duty. That's what they are supposed to do. They are legally obligated to do that. It's not, we're defending the status quo. We just want things to stay as they are. That's propaganda. That's false. Why is Jim Ryan freaking out? Projection. He's not freaking out and trying to block Xbox from getting anything because they're against the deal. What do you mean? They're against the deal. But for everything I just said. Again, that's why I keep telling people, you've been propagandized. You've watched enough videos and read enough blogs. It's baked all these presumptions into the crust of what you think. It's just baked in. This deal's good. Anybody who's against it is scared. Anybody who's against it is wrong. Jim Ryan's freaking out. He's crying. He's pathetic. Like, imagine looking at a company that size and watching the CEO protect the company's revenue and profit and their interest. He's doing what he's legally obligated to do and being like, he's pathetic and he's freaking out. You've watched too many YouTube videos. No. Imagine this was happening in a market that you didn't care about. Imagine this was happening in a market that you didn't care about. Let's say you didn't give a hoot and a holler about baseball gloves. You don't give a frick about baseball gloves. You don't play baseball. You don't watch baseball. In fact, you dislike baseball. And let's say there was a company that wanted to do a major acquisition of some production funnel. And one of the leading distributors and sellers of baseball gloves says, hey, if this deal goes through, it could really hurt us. We don't want the deal to go through. Would you look at that company and say, why are they freaking out? They look pathetic. Why are they crying? You wouldn't do that. You'd have no emotional attachment to it. You'd say, oh, man, I gotta make it make sense. You know. That makes sense. If Burger King was trying to buy Coca-Cola, that's the one I keep going to. If Burger King was trying to buy Coca-Cola, McDonald's would be like, yo, that stands to be tectonically disruptive to our revenue streams. We don't think this deal should go through. That's going to create an anti-competitive, antitrust environment for us. Look at McDonald's freaking out. Look at them crying. And let's just say the deal goes through, and it massively hurts McDonald's revenue streams and their profit, and they're shutting down stores and assembly lines and factories and laying people off. Take that, McDonald's, and all of the people that were working there, and now I can't get a Coke on the corner anymore. This kind of sucks. This was bad. The deal doesn't go through, it's bad for Sony. If it does go through, it's bad for Sony. Why is it bad for Sony if the deal doesn't go through? I want this one explained to me. I'm on the edge of my seat. Why is it bad for Sony if the deal doesn't go through? They're apparently too stupid to know that, like, hey, you know, you're fighting against this deal. It's going to be bad for you if the deal doesn't go through. Man, you should run over to Sony headquarters and educate them. You're smarter than they are. They're awfully dumb. Lono wants Coke on the corner. No, I don't need slap, mama. Because they burnt bridges with Activision? I like that you think that. I like that. That's good. That's good. They burnt bridges with Activision. Let's just think this through for a second. Let's think this through. According to the reports, Activision annually got 13% of their revenue. PlayStation. 48% of the sales of Call of Duty come from PlayStation. You know what's amazing is the fiduciary duty that Activision has to their shareholders makes it impossible for them to break the deals, the contracts, and the relationships what they have with Sony. Nobody sees the fact that Sony has so much power in this situation. Everybody thinks they're desperate and they're crying. If this deal doesn't go through, Sony doesn't care. If the deal doesn't go through, you're hurting Activision's revenue stream of billions of dollars. Shareholders in their relationship of Activision who actually want the deal to go through. And also the union. That's nothing compared to 70 billion. But that's not at all. Why should I trust other... Oh, you retracted it. Don't you... Okay, let's say you're right, JC. Let's just say for the sake of the argument, because I don't have the patience to dismantle what you just said, because it's not true. But it's easier just to let you be right for the time being. Let's say you're right. The deal doesn't go through and it hurts Activision Blizzard financially. I wonder if it would be in their interest to maintain revenue streams with someone who accounts for 13% of their annual revenue. When Xbox dictates 48% of Sony's revenue, they're shaking in their boots. When you state facts that aren't facts as if they're facts because you misunderstood a stat, you look silly. 48% of Sony's revenue. Sony makes up oh my gosh. Sony makes up 48% of the people who buy Call of Duty. What that means is if you put all of the people that buy Call of Duty in a room, half of them buy it on Sony PlayStation. What that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that 48% of Sony's revenue comes from Activision Blizzard. Golly. Wow. Okay. Okay. It's time. It's time for everybody to go home. 48% of Sony's revenue. They could get the additional revenue by making smaller deals with Microsoft, especially as they fostered a relationship with them to go through the deal. Yeah, and even if that were true, what Zubair is saying is phenomenal. That's the literal definition of illegal anti-competitive behavior. We can spend $70 billion and mess with half your revenue. Oh, golly. Keep going. I'm going to get you more subs. Oh, stop it. Stop it. Don't claim... Whatever. If we get 18 more members, we'll be at 200, and I will owe you guys... What is that, 40? Yeah, that'd be 40. Could we get 18 more members? We're going to have a great Friday night. We're going to have some great member streams over the weekend. Crazy to think a company would be okay losing $70 billion. I like that you think you can frame it as losing $70 billion. That's amazing to me. If the deal doesn't go through, guys, Activision Blizzard's going to lose $70 billion. Did you know that? What is happening? It's, you know what it is? This is the witching hour of the stream, where somebody's laying down on the canvas and they're just like, I'm going to throw anything that'll stick. What's this? Oh, yeah. Activision's going to lose $70 billion if the deal doesn't go through. Ugh. It's like you're just literally saying stuff that's not true. Like, what? That's not true. They're not losing $70 billion. What do you mean? Like, Activision Blizzard may be in a depressed state and seeking purchase. Right? They may be in a depressed state and they're seeking purchase for security, but they still have revenue streams and they're still operating right now. They're still, as far as we can tell, they're a profitable company. Now, if the deal doesn't go through, sure, they might have to downsize. They might have to suffer some losses. But that's the risk, isn't it? When you go into a deal like this, isn't that the risk? Is that the deal might not go through, and then you're going to have to figure out what you do next. It's why they've already have contingency plans for the deal not going through. Like, Bobby Kotick's going to stay. There's all these things they've said publicly about, like, oh, if the deal doesn't go through. Saying Microsoft would pay $70 billion for ABK is not the same thing as ABK losing $70 billion if the purchase doesn't go through. Right, like those, yeah, it's, woo, yo, what's good, Colin? How can you lose money that was never yours? Just jeepers. Like I said, it's like the witching hour of the stream. It's like, man, you're just throwing everything at the wall. You're like, it's like, it just gets hard. It's like, how do you expect me to take you serious when you're just saying nonsense? You're just typing nonsense. What I'm saying is, if the deal doesn't go through, Microsoft can make the same deals Sony has been making with additional money. Sony wants people to associate PlayStation with COD. Yeah, and JC, that is not supporting your premise. Your premise was, if the deal doesn't go through, bad for Sony. If the deal does go through, bad for Sony. You haven't made a compelling case that if the deal doesn't go through, it's bad for Sony. You haven't made a compelling case at all. There's the possibility that the deal doesn't go through, and Sony swoops in and says, hey, listen, that was rough. I'm really sorry about that. We got $5 billion left in acquisition spending, and we would like to talk about some of your property. Like, you can't assume that this deal's automatically bad for Sony. Like, if it doesn't go through, like that, I don't think that presumption is. I don't think it's founded. They are against the deal because in their mind that would be far better for them. It'd be way better for us if this deal doesn't go through. Everything is bad for Sony because Sony's bad. Okay, you guys have 5 minutes to get 18 more members. And we've got some other things we're going to be doing today. So hang tight with me. I owe you members, so don't leave if you want to be potentially one of the people that gets a membership. So don't leave. And we may do a little bit of a run here. You guys can do this one at a time. There's so many people still here. Make sure you're smashing the like button as well. I've not really asked for likes or members or coffee or anything today. We've just been so deep in the trenches. Thank you for an amazing debate and amazing back and forth. Even though some of y'all are a little out in left field sometimes, a little wild, it was still enjoyable. It was still fun. So make sure that you are smashing all those buttons. It helps the video find more people. Where do you get all this information from? You can't tell me I can't trust other YouTubers. That means I can't trust you too, because I bet you get your information from the internet too. So you've just taken us down the logical trajectory of agnosticism. We can't really know anything. We don't really know if anything's true, therefore we can't know anything, which is a nonsensical statement. To claim that you know that we can't know anything is a claim of knowledge. I don't know where you've taken us, but that's not what I claimed. Go back and watch my 30-minute show open where I painstakingly go through the facts and the direct quotations from the articles and the documents. And if you're going to say, oh, but you got that on the internet, that could be false, you have just entered into a weak, agnostic, unfalsifiable position where, well, if you've got facts and evidence that goes contrary to what I think, I'm just going to claim that we can't trust anything because it's on the internet. Well, then we can't know anything, so why even have a conversation? I appreciate that, Oreo Shake Buddy. Thanks for the coverage, Lono. Sorry, I just kind of lurk in the background. I appreciate it. Bad for Sony because they most likely will lose marketing rights to COD and it'll go to Microsoft. If it doesn't go through, it won't be as bad, but it'll still be broken some relationships. Right, so JC, you're right there. You're so close. You've almost reasoned yourself into a way of seeing that Sony's not doing anything wrong. Sony sees a tectonic shift in the market with Microsoft spending lots of money, and they're trying to mitigate the effect it will have on them. It took us 2 hours and 51 minutes to get here, but we got here. That's it. That's what I've been saying. You've basically just said that. You've basically just accidentally argued yourself into, oh yeah, Sony's trying to mitigate the effect and the damage that this has on their bottom line. like any good business should. Wow. So Sony is scared. Yeah, they're scared. They're desperate. Jeepers. Like I'm playing cards with my brother's kids or something. My gosh. All right, I'm going to give you your 20. I'm going to give you guys your 20 members. It doesn't look like we're getting the 18. It doesn't look like we're getting the 18. I'm going to give you your 20. And Ant Gifts 1. Okay, there's 1. Okay, there's 1 from Ant. We get 17 more. I owe you another 20. Hang on, Andrew's texting me. Hello. We didn't. We didn't pick a topic. We got Mike on the mic next? No. No, Mike is traveling. So I have different plans for us today. Yo, Robin H. jumping back in as a member. Thank you so much. That's why either way it's going to be bad for Sony, though, because of how they've been fighting the case, mitigating the potential damage, but just my opinion. Right. Okay, so JC, let's take what you just said and let's create the antithesis. The antithesis would be logical here. Sony doesn't fight the case at all. Their shareholders, their board members would say, what in the F are you doing? You have a duty to protect this stuff. What is going on? The antithesis isn't a possibility. They have a legal duty to do what they are doing. That's where people keep getting lost in this. I can't. Sony's so desperate. They're crying. No, they're abiding by their legal obligations. Like they're protecting their revenue streams. What? Where are you getting this? The antithesis isn't possible. They couldn't just roll over and say, yeah, this is totally fine. We don't need any concessions. That's fine. There we go. Let's get this. Come on. We're almost there. 188 from Ant. Gifting 5 goes to Pony Slasher. Oh, that's hilarious. Grover Monster, John Hall, Michael Gaw, JZH Gaming. You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes to get another 20 bomb from me. Everyone has their own side. This YouTube has Xbox fans, the other side has PlayStation fans, and the other side's just in between. Doesn't know which to go to. If you want to whittle down my content and my stream and my extensive argumentation and research today as this is just another YouTube channel and you're from the PlayStation side, your inability to see the difference in what I've attempted to do as being distinguished from the people that don't do what I did today, that's your lack of ability. That's not a lack of substance in my content. I have painstakingly walked through this. 5 more members. Ooh, we're right there. 193, baby. 193, we're right there. Hang on. We gotta do. Hang on. I'm not gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time. I want this video to be shorter than 3 hours. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Hurry, if anybody's gonna give to get us there. Oh, let me just do. Can I do this and then just say Friday? Will that work? Okay. Calm. Redirect. Save. Today is the 10th. Today is Mario Day. Hey, whoa, we're so close. We're so close. That's 5 from Siege Master. We're 2 away. We're 2 away. That's 198. That's 198. 2 more, and I owe you a 20 bomb. Oh, we're right on the edge. Go, 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 There's one from Abe. There's one from Abe. Goes to Ken Jack. All right, I know we're going to get it. I'm just going to go through the process. I know one more is coming. I'm just going to do my 20. Thank you, Abe. I think Abe did too. Okay, there we go. All right, we did it. We did it. We did it with 2 minutes to spare. We did it with 2 minutes to spare. Abe did 2 and Siege Master did 1. So that takes us to 101. There we did. We did it. We did it. We did it. We did it. I'm sorry, 201. 201. Bam, we did it. There's another 20 for me. Okay. So listen, everybody that got a membership, hear me say this. It's been a lot of talking, a lot of vibing, a lot of debating today. It's been a blast, but we're not done. Yo, Keithius just jumped in all on their own, taking us to 202. Thank you, Keithius, for being like, listen, man, I'll get my own membership. Thank you very much for doing that. Listen, tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, my wife and I are going to be playing The Devil in Me. True Gohan just took us to 203. We're going to be playing The Devil in Me, and that's for members only. We'll also be playing tomorrow night as well. It's a doubleheader horror weekend, all right? It's a doubleheader horror weekend, but I have a video that I want you guys to see. The next big Harry Potter game, we know what it's going to be. We actually do. I have a really great breakdown of what the next big Harry Potter game is going to be. I am going, okay, I'm going to send you there now. You can use a link or you can be redirected, all right? I'm going to send you there now. Ignore that it says it's going to start in like 20 minutes. That's not true. I'll kick it live as soon as you get over there. Once that Harry Potter video is done, I'm going to hang out with members for a little bit, and then I'm going to check out that Resident Evil demo for a teeny bit, okay? It's not going to be a very long stream. I might just check that out with members. I don't know if I want to stream that publicly. I heard it was really short, okay? So, we got to go. Click the link in chat or ride the redirect. I'll see you guys over there.